Okay.
So today is Thursday, June 22nd at 5:33 at the joint policy and curriculum learning committee meeting at Stewart District of Menominee Falls in the upper level conference room 3344. Leah has the meeting properly posted.
Yes.
Okay, and minutes approval. I need a motion to approve the May 18th, 2023 policy committee minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Has everybody been able to take a peek at it, any concerns, questions, anything like that, or something okay?
I think,
Oh, this is just,
Right?
I think this is what was in there for me already.
Oh,
It
sorry,
is just the policy,
it's the policy.
committee.
oh, okay.
It's not joint, it's just policy, so it can just be Nina, Chris and Joel.
Yes. So it was,
Everything looked good?
okay,
Okay.
all those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Alright. I'm so out of it on this one.
It's alright, it's been a week.
I don't even know what day it is, okay.
Alright.
So our first item of discussion is policy procedure 361 and 871.
Back to it.
Back to it.
Okay. Do you want to
Go for it.
Alright. So as I said, two of you are new, but if you're paying attention to our previous work, library media selection challenges, you will see that it closely mirrors it. And so, while we're obviously making some technically significant changes, it will have a similar feel to work that we've already done and things we've kind of already talked about. And back when we were working on those library media materials, this was a part of the conversation because policy 361 and its procedure and policy 871 and its procedure incorporated curriculum, supplemental materials, and library media materials. And during those conversations, we talked about how the board's ability to weigh in on these policies have different laws that apply to it. And all three are actually different. And so we felt that it was best to parse all three of these out into their own separate policies, so we weren't infringing in one area and weakening our abilities in another. So this, for me, I felt would be the actual policy 361. I think when Amy and I were going through it, I think we have like at least 5, if not maybe 6 policies that are curriculum related. And those will have their own numbers correlated to that grouping of things that we'll work on later. So I'm going to keep 361 as a thing, and it will be supplemental educational material selection.
Are you talking about like the 330s?
Yeah,
Yes, like the 331.
and then I think there's a 340 in
Yeah,
there somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that after we do
Yes.
this, we can look at that because I think
I
it
know.
will be simpler.
Yeah.
I mean, and condense it. I would really like it to be like one policy.
Oh, one policy, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah. So I
Yeah, I
think it's
think
and just, yeah, they're
like
pretty
parents' rights
wordy.
is on there and, yeah.
And so just streamline it and mirror what kind of best practices and I think truly how our practices evolve. Not that we're not following policy, but there are just some nuances in there that I think we can
Yes, streamline it.
streamline and make
Yeah.
it more clear.
I like it.
So,
And supplemental materials are still different than curriculum in the way that they are tangential. And we can still have a fairly robust challenge process. However, you know, like true curriculum, getting a whole new science series is not something that just one community member can challenge, right? I mean, we can't pull all of our science texts from the room. So
Right.
curriculum obviously will have to get its own review and whatnot, but supplemental educational materials, I think you'll see is following in a similar path with more, with different levels, so we'll get there, but just so you know, we didn't forget about everything. We're parsing all three out, 361 used to contain all three, now it's just gonna be supplemental educational materials. This truly was 361 that I just grabbed, and I think you can see a lot of things where the word supplemental was added. And then and the word should was in there. So supplemental materials are really pretty broad, so in that, I guess, third paragraph, reputable and unbiased professional selection aids should be used in selecting and evaluating supplemental educational materials when applicable. I mean, it's very possible that you could just have a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article. And there's really not like a place where that article got like reviewed by some organization, but like, you know, let's say it's just, I don't know what you'd be reading there, but I used to pull articles because I taught social studies, so I'm like, oh, it just so
Current
happens
events.
that
Yeah.
this current events thing is completely aligning with the topic that we're talking about, and it's in the local newspaper. There's not really a place where I can go get like ratings and
Right, yeah,
things like
it's
that.
topical, it's relevant, a teacher pulls it into the class the next day, uses it, talks about it, and never pulls it into that course again,
Yeah,
because it's no longer topical. That's technically a supplemental material, and so, you know, teachers have the latitude to do that within our process. They also, it can be a book that they pull and decide to use with
But
the
then a
whole class or
book
a small group.
has
Right.
more things available to it to research.
Correct.
So we wanna make sure that it's like, I'm not gonna force you to go try to find something that I know doesn't exist
Right.
when you're using this one device. But then there are plenty of places for these other things, so then that would be applicable, and now you need to start vetting your things through that.
Right, and I think it becomes much more relevant when we think about teachers on the internet finding web resources and things like that. There's just so much out there that isn't necessarily going to be vetted through a traditional process, but could be considered a supplemental material that a teacher can very well use to I just lost my word. Enhance, that's the word I'm looking for, thank you, Sarah, that, yes, like enhance the experience for the students.
Is there any reason why we would want biased supplemental materials in?
Oh, unbiased professional
No,
selection?
yeah, biased. Is there any reason why we would want bias or why a teacher would use a biased opinion? Cause I'm more looking
Only
at
if they had
this.
balance and showed the
I
other
was gonna
side,
say,
they would have to,
Could be
because that's
to prove a-
controversial.
prove a
Yeah.
point
Issues.
with a topic, you
Okay.
know, and identifying bias,
Okay,
you know, or something very
True.
that's
Yeah.
Okay.
a pretty narrow,
So when we get
Very
to the
narrow.
Show the
procedure,
other side, then you're
But
gonna
that's
bias
controversial
again.
issues.
Right.
So.
Kinda.
so we do have controversial issues policy, but then in the procedure for this, we do have like these reputable ones, like they're kind of considered the norm. So, I mean, I think we're just looking to make sure that when you're kind of looking through your reference material, you're looking for something, and unbiased to me also means like not funded to give that answer. You know, so like,
Yeah.
if you make vitamins, you can get a study made that talks about how great your vitamins are. But like you
biased.
paid for that
Yeah.
study, and most people would say that feels like a biased study because it wasn't like neutral people who came in and like blind tested your vitamins, like you paid this company to test your vitamins. So
Yeah.
to me, that's also an
that's-
unbiased factor, is that you're not going to the author's page to decide that it's a good book. You're going to like those professionals or those other groups that vet other people's work, and they don't have a monetary incentive connected to that.
When I read that though, I did have a question on, I don't know if we want to dive in right now, but I did have a question about like what determines reputable and unbiased, you
Well,
know?
I think that's just a
mean,
little subjective, yeah.
yeah, cause I mean, like that Book Looks, that's the only site I know of that has a profanity count. I mean, we can get
But
it
really,
later, but
policy should be very broad.
yeah,
You know, it's the procedure aspect
Yeah,
that we would get
it's
into
not
the nitty gritty,
item
we would be able to
itemized
tighten
in
up
here.
a little bit more.
but it was something that kind of posed a question when I was.
So some of these
thinking about it.
things, you're writing them so that people kind of understand that we have expectations
Mhm.
and that a board, a district, a community isn't just gonna accept anything. And then if you really feel like what somebody chose isn't that, and you can kind of substantiate that somehow, then you turn back to that and say, but we told you it had to be reputable, professional, and unbiased.
Mhm.
So it's really getting people in the mindset that these are our expectations.
Right.
And oftentimes people in education kind of will have a mindset around these things. But then if we ever feel like maybe somebody pushed that limit,
Yeah.
we have something to go back to say, we told you this is what we expected. After reviewing this, we feel that it doesn't meet that standard, therefore it's
Right.
not a source that you can use.
It
So-
sets parameters.
It does.
And I mean, with that though, like, and my argument would be with that, well, you say I should, that doesn't mean I have to.
You
know, so-
shall.
So like when I look at policy and
Well, when we were working on this,
I look at shall.
and I didn't have when applicable. So I'm okay with will with when applicable.
I just think in the reality of what teachers do, it's not always going to be applicable. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't want a
mean-
teacher not to use a strong resource and provide that opportunity just because they can't.
There's not always a
It's a-
perfect package for
Correct.
everything, I get it,
But
so,
I,
So we can go back to will with when
Yeah.
applicable. I
I
had
agree.
should before we added when applicable.
yes,
It's just, so like, I
Oh.
taught social studies, I absolutely use the paper, the regular paper, and the Milwaukee Journals are in the 6th grade level.
I'm okay with should.
So it's like clearly fine for middle and high school that I taught, so.
I like the word should.
You like the word should? We can leave it.
I
What?
don't know,
We're
we
gonna-
can, well, maybe we'll mull it over.
We'll mull over
yeah,
should.
Like I said, I think we just need to understand what we want
Yeah,
and
so maybe as we
understand,
go along, it'll,
Let's
understand that
mull over
should
it.
leaves it open
Not
for a
even
lot of
so.
interpretation.
right,
Should
and
we?
they, yeah,
Should we?
we?
Sorry, I'm
We
slap
shall.
happy, it's my
We
last
shall.
meeting of the week.
We've had a long week.
I know.
So then, I kind of deleted
It
that
is Friday
next
tomorrow.
paragraph, just because there was a paragraph lower,
Mhm.
onto the next page that also talked about what selection should be. And
Yeah.
it just had more stuff in it, so I
Yeah.
just moved it up and deleted the other one.
Perfect.
So it's not really deleted in the true sense, and that other one is just coming from
Forward.
below.
Okay.
Gifts was already in there, we are responsible for structuring and managing the procedures. Usually it does like me. Right there, and then this was also still in there, about, we're kind of telling people that we respect your right to disagree, see policy 871.
Mhm.
That's the challenging
Yeah.
policy.
And then now because, we don't have core instructional materials anymore, libraries already moved once before. Educational materials, I didn't really feel like it was overly used anywhere, so I took, when you read them, I took like the comma, the including, from the top one and put it in the bottom one, and then to me, they said the same thing. Okay, so we got it.
That's awesome.
Yay, okay, so, so we really
Yeah,
just
cause it
have,
was confusing.
we just have one
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
I'm not exactly sure why it was like that, but I just felt like we can capture all of it without being confusing, and just this is what supplemental materials are.
Mhm.
To me, the educational materials were the things in the library,
It might have
and
been,
then core and supplementary were the curriculum.
And since we're separating them out,
Yes,
then
yeah,
that's
we
why
don't have
it's,
that piece.
yeah.
Before we go on though, what about the vending machine? The book vending machine, what is that considered?
What is-
As we think about that, that's the
Oh,
gray area.
all of the vending machines.
I love it, I
Middle
love the
school,
concept,
yeah,
yes.
the book vending
Yeah,
machine.
it's-
So is that a separate
Can I
policy?
write everybody at work and human
Do you think that's a
resources?
separate
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't even.
These book things.
I know.
I know,
So,
right? I know.
So is it a separate policy? So do you guys know vending, the book vending
Yes.
machine?
My
Okay.
understanding is it's not part of a,
I feel like it's considered
Class.
library,
oh,
so
yeah.
I would push it over into
I
library
just-
books.
I'm just throwing
I
that out
think
there,
you
I'm not
consider, cause
debating
they're
it.
making a choice.
So I believe
Yes, they're
kids,
choosing
the
from the vending
student is.
machines.
Yeah.
The student is making the choice, it's
Yeah,
not
I
me
don't
handing
think
you a
it
book,
would
it
be
is
hard.
the
And there's
student.
no payment.
So I would
But
go
they-
library.
so I think the
But what's
kids,
nice is Terry added a link
okay,
and to inform the
I did
parents
talk to her about that vending
Yeah.
machine.
about,
Back in
yeah,
the day.
I did too.
about what are the choices.
Yeah, okay.
So that, and
So-
I would appreciate that, I appreciate that, to be, you know,
I like the
outward
idea of
about
the
it.
vending machine, but it just needs to make sure that we have
Yeah.
a robust selection for kids.
So I would say it
Yeah.
falls into library books, because the kids are of their own free will to go there and choose it,
Mhm.
and instead of having to return it, they get to keep it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not being used for instruction in any way, it's take home and read.
Part of library.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody,
I thought about that very much.
so I think if somebody, you know, felt that there was something inappropriate there, they would file 872.
Or just hand it back, right? And then-
Oh, like if your
Absolutely.
own kid got a book you didn't want,
Yeah.
you could absolutely give it back. But like, let's say there's a book in there that people super feel
Oh, yeah,
strongly
that
about,
didn't feel like
and
it
they
should
don't
be
want
there.
the book in
Yeah.
there at all, then I think they would have to follow 872.
Who determines the books that go in there?
I think we should talk to Terry about that.
I think,
'cause
yeah.
that's a
Okay,
big
sorry,
I think-
I'm going
I
to,
think
well,
they
I'll
had
say
like-
some,
contract.
I think they had some purview, I think they had some purview over it. But
okay,
I will check in with Terry, so
Okay.
at the next meeting we can have a follow-up. But I do feel like it would be 365 and 872.
okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
yeah, but okay, to be continued.
And then on the back page, what's not included is the same stuff that wasn't included before. And then it's telling you that, you know, if it's library media, go to policy 365. And then we added audiovisual materials are also covered under policy 360, the instructional use of audiovisual materials, and we just recently worked on that too in the winter, where we kind of updated that one. And so so if you're gonna show a movie, you're gonna kick yourself back over to that policy.
Yeah.
So even though it's a supplemental material, we have a much more robust policy over there.
Yeah.
That you'll go look at for that. And then, I think we deleted this out of the other one in 365 too. The selection paragraph I moved up to the top. And then I kind of wanted to keep challenges more to the challenge, so it's not confusing. So I just wanted to keep it with that paragraph on the first page. I didn't want all that there. I wanted to save that for 871. But we are telling you where to go if you do wanna challenge something.
Now, for the name that is listed here for policy 365, library media material selection, is it now library media centers and material selection? Like, there are two different names.
Oh wait, I gotta go look.
My current,
What?
here's my
Well,
current.
I
That's
have
the very bottom.
the
Library media centers and material selection.
Do you
That's
know-
our new policy.
But
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
365.
policy 365 right after the colon,
Mhm.
it doesn't state exactly that.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
good
right
catch,
here.
yep. Good catch, yeah, we always,
So we need to just
Kind of
update that.
Cause
do
it-
that with the
I know,
fine-tune.
cause like when you change one, it's just hard to search and find
Go
it.
back and get the other.
and we gotta make sure there's no medials.
There better not be.
I'm sorry.
Forever
The
on.
bane of my
I got the
existence.
weirdest,
Yeah.
I have the weirdest,
And then the cross
ability
reference
to
two
find
down
spelling
at the
errors. It's the
bottom, you know
weirdest.
that 365 again.
Yeah, it's just,
Oh.
so we'll just need to.
Sarah's on it.
A little
We need
bit.
fresh pair of eyes here.
Good, it just
Look at those
takes
young
many
eyes.
pairs of eyes to get all the pieces to these.
Yeah.
Very complicated, yeah.
It's good
So-
that you guys are here, cause my eyes gloss over this.
When
I
you
don't
have to
witness
personally-
that.
cross-reference these policies,
We're already there, you know.
tell me what that means, I guess.
So I think, you know, like.
I'm gonna be honest, I think there's too many of them here,
Well,
but they were already there.
it's an intimidating
Yeah.
list, but I think about the controversial issues.
I
So
think
there,
controversial.
you know,
That's
like that
probably
makes
there.
sense when we talk about like the purpose and
Right.
the potential content information, then music is just another
It's another more specific policy, so like the music teacher
Yeah.
during class
I know
time
all the,
is
yeah,
like working with the kid.
so,
So I think this is just saying
just like some backup
hey, just
ones,
so you
like
know,
reference.
if your actual concern happens to be any of these things, we have a way more specific policy
Here's what
over
we
here.
So it's kind of like a cross-reference, but then they're like, oh, well, maybe I should
Yeah.
look it up
They're not actually named inside of it, but
No.
there are things that feel like they might go with it.
Okay,
So like,
so it's,
This
yeah, it
policy
says
talks about
cross-reference.
gifts, so we have a specific gift
We have a
policy
gift
as well.
policy.
True, yeah,
So
good
those
point.
two things do connect, in
So
that way if the gift is a supplemental resource.
my questions arose more in the procedures, but I think one might apply to policy is I don't know how we're gonna like informing the parent, like the transparency piece. Like a knowing, so they know what's in the classroom, like
okay,
like
so let's go
for
to the
their library,
procedure.
let's say,
Yeah,
like
so let's go to the procedure.
Alright, sorry,
Yeah.
so
Um,
we might need to readdress that in policy if
So
we're
the
gonna go
first
with
thing
that.
just felt like an opener, and it was kind of the same as before, but instead of saying like library media specialist, it's the teacher or other certified instructor, just in case it's like sometimes a social worker might do something or a counselor might do something. They're not technically a teacher, but they are like a certified instructor, so the first paragraph is a little basic. Then I went through the general criteria that we had for all the other things, and these 5 felt like they also matched supplemental educational materials, that they support enriched curriculum, and then the other one started with meet high standards in literacy and then went on. We added content because these are supposed to be more specific, you know, to content, be appropriate for the subject, age, and all those other things. We want it to be, this is already in there, accurate and factual, representing differing and balanced viewpoints on the issue. These were the 9 sources that we already had for books before. I did go online to every single one of those last night, and they are open and available to the public, they're free, and you can, like, I did a lot of clicking to make sure it wasn't like, oh, you only get 5. So they're
Oh, yeah,
open and
they're
available
current.
to everybody. And so those would just match what we're already using for other things. And then the next page is really the same stuff that we use for library and curriculum and supplemental materials before. And this one we kind of already, got a little dash there. So we talked about before. So I think this is where we would talk about, and I'm just gonna be honest, I haven't taught in so long, I don't remember what I did. To let parents know what we were doing. I worked in
Yeah.
I worked in districts that had very formal curriculum, like the text, the teacher's edition, the other supplemental materials mostly came from the text publisher.
Right.
And I'm trying to think, so you'll know, like what do teachers realistically do in today's day and age to let parents know about supplemental materials?
So I think realistically, they are talking more about topics that they're covering and standards that they're teaching. And you know, because you know, back to school night or whatever, it's talked about, you know, they're always using the core resource. I think if and we've talked about book lists, like if they're choosing a book that they're gonna be in, read for several weeks, you know, we need to be communicating with that, and that's not always happening. But if I'm using an article from the Journal Sentinel that I read last night, I probably am not communicating those things, but again, they're very short-term kinds of things, and I think, and topical, I may have, in my research of, you know, trying to make a particular lesson more engaging, I may have come across a website that I think the kids will use, maybe there's a game on there that we can play that'll teach, you know, whatever vocabulary, and so I incorporate that in my lesson. I'm probably not communicating that to parents, but again, it's a short-term, quick turnaround, so
So there could be like
And sometimes with the
parameter there.
weekly emails though, some teachers do include that,
they could,
you know,
Yeah.
like, hey, we have them play this game.
so I just,
Do you think there's a parameter we can set?
so
Like
I'm just
short-term
wondering, I'm
versus
thinking about the balance
for
of, you know, how often those things are fairly benign, particularly at the elementary
Mhm.
level. I'm thinking about how often that happens.
I think for
You don't
me, in particular, this is more important for the older classrooms in particular, like ELA.
Mhm.
You know,
We
the
talked about
book list in
Yeah, I
general,
feel like
I think
that's-
that's where my mind
Well,
goes.
that's what I'm
And I
thinking,
was
you know
thinking
what,
not
you know what.
extraneous
And I-
stuff,
Yeah,
you know, and
The
if we
classroom,
could-
libraries, the supplemental
we can be specific about some of those things.
That's what I
think
feel
that's, I think that's reasonable.
That's
Yeah.
where
I think
my mind goes.
where I worry is if we write too
No.
blanket of a policy,
Yeah.
and then I have teachers who say, now I don't feel like I can bring in any
Correct.
supplemental
Yeah.
materials because I have to communicate
Vet it.
every single thing, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget something. So
Yeah.
now I'm just gonna turn the page of the text, and while the text is great, sometimes we gotta jazz it up.
It's boring.
Well,
Yeah.
and like you said, like a resource online or something
Yeah.
too,
I think
so
there are
I
just
mean,
so many of those too, so.
yeah, so I guess if it's more of a, if they're held captive in the classroom, I'm just kidding.
That judge. I was
But,
like, every kid loves this judge.
or-
They're being
or-
held captive in the classroom.
That's right.
Right.
Never mind.
I'll never have a day
Yeah.
off, right.
But or like if it's in a required, like a reading list,
Yeah.
supplemental, like I told you,
Supplemental
if
reading.
it's
I
a
think it's
Google Doc
assignments
that's
that will-
hidden,
For me, I think
not
it's when
hidden,
you
but
specify
in
an
deep in
assignment
Schoology.
that will last more than a week, versus
Mhm.
a daily thing.
Mhm.
Specify like time frame, consider an article that's a one dayer versus a book list that is an assignment for an extended amount of time. I think
I
that's.
think writing a book list thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
um,
we give
And then can
examples.
we have a core, and again, I'm not telling how the
Standard
teachers how to teach, but if
Mhm.
there is a core set of books that are just standard every year,
Mhm.
And like,
and
yeah,
then
we
to
have that.
inform parents and go, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
And then if there's an additional book that's assigned, then that's an easy email then, cause it's just
Yeah.
one.
Right.
Versus trying to
Well, and
navigate, I'm just
that's-
trying to simplify things.
And
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that's what I
thinking about.
appreciate, cause I wanna make it manageable and realistic for our teachers, but yeah, get parents the information that they
But then they
need.
have it at the beginning, cause I remember again, back to Sweeney, I think he did a great job in one of the class where we
Yeah.
got the email at the very beginning, check, here it is, you wanna
Mm-hmm.
do it, here it is. And so it's all like in that one,
Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking too, like, do we say like quarterly, like sending in if there are any updates, or do we put, kind of like a, semester for each semester, or like an up, or as they change
Or can
for
we
that type
designate-
of book?
I'm trying to think, designate like grade levels, right, that's how we can narrow it down better versus a broad, cause
Like in high, like in high
like
school, like middle school and high school.
should be, blah, 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 weekly newsletter, and then middle school and then elementary, cause there's not much, then we don't, it's loose, it's more loose in the elementary, in the younger grades, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a way
But
that
I
we can
mean,
have,
like,
I
so
think
for
for
example, like
something
with
it
high
should be a
school, they're
constant.
reading it for a longer time, but,
All grades, so, and then you're just looking at time frame if you wanna do that.
cause I was
So I
thinking,
think grades gets confusing and then you're not applying the same,
but the type of material that they're exposed to when they're younger versus older are vastly different. Because I'm looking at the 871 or
but
the,
you could say
but-
that depending on the teacher though.
yes.
But my
you
whole
notice
point is
like
that
how
they
we
should be
designated
notified.
this? Elementary, no,
Well, I think
that's how my mind
I
is.
think the high schools are definitely working on quarters.
Right,
And
and
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the teacher has that already pretty
yeah,
planned,
they
you know?
they
Yeah.
typically do, I think we
Mm-hmm.
just don't probably communicate it out the way that we could. And so I think there are really two pieces, because elementary teachers, I hope, are communicating every week. Like, here's what's going on in the classroom, because elementary kids don't necessarily go home and, as a former
That's
first grade
important.
teacher, they don't go home and tell exactly what happened in class.
yeah, exactly.
But then it's the communication of the content
Yes,
and the
one step
resources
further.
that is
Yeah.
maybe less critical at elementary, because things are changing very quickly and you're doing a lot and, but at high school, you're
It can be more of a Google Doc situation.
correct, and you're
Yeah.
staying in things longer and the content is potentially more controversial or more
Yeah,
just
I think
in-depth.
I think it needs to go one step further a little bit, like, more regular, more of a routine. And, we just finished communication committee and, the communication survey with all the parents and community members, one of the things they want more information on, I think it was in the 76% or something, curriculum.
Yeah, what the students are learning.
I think we can talk about elementary being in their weekly newsletter, because they're already doing it.
Yeah,
Right,
And it might not be something every week, I mean, it
Yeah.
might just
Right.
kind
Right.
of be like nothing changed.
right.
But there's a weekly newsletter available, and if you have anything, that's where it should go.
mhm,
And definitely secondary, to me, I feel like they work on quarters.
yeah,
Like,
they do.
like there was, like, I taught on semesters, but I think our AB schedule might have a little bit of quarter to
Something
it.
like that to delineate.
So,
Like, I'm pretty sure that
teachers
the
know.
bulk of your supplemental materials as a middle or high school teacher, when you're teaching ninth grade English, I feel like you already have a good idea
you should,
at the
you should
beginning of
have
the
a good
year
idea
Yeah.
of what
of your
books,
big
what your
stuff.
book list is gonna be
And
and what
then
your
if you
topics are.
have anything that just like came to you or because of the way the discussion went, then you can send that in an email
Yeah.
or something. If it's a big thing, like I'm
I was
adding a
gonna,
whole
yeah, I
book.
was, if you're
Not
adding a
I'm
whole
adding
book,
a
yeah,
Journal
don't,
Sentinel article
right,
that's like
yeah.
3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
But like, you know what, we've decided to add this book to the reading list because of the interest of the kids on this topic,
Mhm.
then you can send that out.
yeah,
I
I think
feel
that,
like
I think
that
that's
reading-
manageable, I think that, I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
feel like
fair.
that reading list is already kinda done
Yeah,
at the
it
beginning.
typically is, I think
Because I
it's,
just
so,
think
yeah,
that if we
I
have this
agree,
and it's broad, it's gonna be very confusing
yeah.
for teachers to
Things are making
be
waves over
able to delineate what
Texting
they
you.
should and
We're still
shouldn't be, break it down.
Yeah,
So-
I think we can make that
elementary
more
versus-
clear.
So I have more to add.
Okay, we'll work on that.
She knows.
Sorry.
Number one, working on number one, okay.
Sorry. You know, when I shared with you those reading lists,
Mhm.
you know, like I said, it was not easily accessible and not in parents on their laps, you know, where they could read it and see that, you know. So I think, you know, if there's potentially, and maybe we need to tweak controversial issues a little bit, because I might be going into another direction, but if they're reading potentially sensitive material, you know, the notification on that, like they should, parents should have a heads up, in my opinion, that,
Well, I think.
cause you're not asking for permission or
Yeah.
asking them to pick a book
One
or
of the
anything,
things, well, I think, are you referencing one of the
like that email that we got.
Eighth grade or seventh grade
Yeah.
list?
Mhm.
If we can add in that criteria, I know we I just lost my train of thought here.
So
The
the eighth grade.
specifications here, if we can put something in the book list in when teachers choose it, if we can also have like a balance of like genres, is that the right word for me to say? Because a lot of that, I remember,
Like in the
I don't
general
know, I don't
criteria.
remember that list, but it was a while ago.
Mhm. Like a
But a lot of them were
classics
like,
or,
you know, that we should have a balance of classics versus biography versus, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would depend on
Because
the
it's so much-
topic and what the focus is,
Yeah.
but yes, I think,
like the unit
um,
topic.
Cause I go
Yeah.
back to ELA, right, I just
Right.
go back
Mhm.
there, and if there is, if we can have more of balance.
yeah, I think,
I mean, cause like, for example, that
Depend
eighth
on
grade
what
list, I mean,
yeah.
there was maybe like 5 out of 32, 36 books that I would I mean, in my opinion, that were like the newer classics, I guess, or some were, like, one was Where the Red Fern Grows. I mean, that's pretty classic. I love that. But, you know, so,
I think we agreed at like an ELA when it's a more general reading list, that it should have
More
a
balance.
It should have,
balance
it
of
should have
what I would
balance,
like
yeah.
is, you know,
genre that's
Yeah.
still
I
meeting
mean, I think
whatever
we're
curriculum standards
forming
you're trying to
that.
get to.
Yeah, I think we're getting there,
We're getting there
and I
for
think,
next- I mean, maybe
yeah,
not
as
next
we're-
year, but yeah.
right, what I think is gonna be a natural, and we've talked about this, kind of the natural next step is where they're working on those ELA standards this
Mhm.
summer, and then we get into next fall, and we can
Yeah.
start having more conversations about where are our gaps in what we're already teaching and what we need to do to supplement with those new standards, and then alongside that is gonna be let's look at what we're teaching, and as we're moving forward, make some adjustments,
I
so.
think if we have a balance, we'll naturally avoid the issues that you're presenting, right?
But
Meaning-
We
You know what I mean? 'Cause
should,
there's so many of them that are picking, you're like, well, I didn't approve this, but there's
But if
other.
I know there's topics that are sensitive in there,
Oh, yeah.
I would, if I mean, if I didn't know that my child was reading sensitive material and not including me in that decision or that conversation, it's kind of problematic. I think a parent should know if there's potentially sensitive material. And I guess maybe we need to look at controversial issues if we're gonna cross-reference it, but and then my other piece was the library in the classroom, like a list of books provided to the parent of what books are in the classroom. Because like, for example, we got an example in 5th grade, there was a book that could be considered controversial. And it's not, I don't think it's I don't know if it's challenged, I don't even know the list. But like if a parent knew that book was in there ahead of time, they could have said something about it,
Okay.
So I'm just throwing things out there,
Maybe we can avoid
like
that.
those libraries, those little teacher libraries.
Yeah,
When we talk about book lists, if we're trying to find balance, to put it under categories, so parents would know.
that, cause I was in a district where we did that, it
Yeah.
took a year.
Well,
It
yeah,
took-
you got a catalog, like
And
list it
and
out.
teachers don't have time to do that, so
Yeah.
we had to pay people to.
Huh?
Yeah, we
Well-
had, because, I mean, some of those classroom libraries, they're using, especially in our elementary, it's huge, they have hundreds of books in their classroom libraries,
But I
so
mean,
to
they're gonna have to
categorize
go
them-
through and with new policy and look through to discern which ones should be in there and which ones shouldn't. I mean, really, no? So they're grandfathered in?
So, no, and we,
I don't think we're
I grandfathered
grandfathered.
But I know it's not gonna happen immediately. I mean,
But I mean, I think, like I said, I taught old kids, I had a classroom library, I think elementary school teachers have pretty robust ones, and I
Yeah.
think,
with
I think what we can work with teaching staff is, to be more cognizant
Mhm.
of what's there,
mhm.
and that over, time, we need to
weed if necessary.
weed
weed
and-
through
Or
those
classroom
things. I
And
don't
and
think
get, and maybe
like,
get there to a
this,
classroom list.
like,
Maybe
by
you can
September
solicit
first,
parent volunteers.
I don't think they're gonna go through all of their books, but I'm trying not to be negative.
So here's the
there's
deal.
been a lack of fidelity and some
Yeah.
following of policies in the district.
I know, and
I'm not gonna place blame on
No.
anybody, but sometimes when things are fine, and you're not really bothering, okay?
Yeah.
And it's just
I
a
get it.
natural habit when you're busy, if people aren't rising things to the top of the priority list, your
Mhm.
priority list stays focused over here and it's not focused over there. And I also think people have absolutely good intentions on everything that they're doing, and so it's just not.
well, and those books don't allude to it
Right.
either.
And so,
You've
it's
seen
just,
it.
things become a priority when someone makes them a priority.
Yes,
And
I
I
get it.
think we've just had a period of time in which these things were not, now they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely fine to have expectations that we are now moving through our policies with more fidelity and expectations. But I do think it's going to, for our large scale classroom libraries, which I don't think are at the high school.
No, they're not, they're
They're at
one
with our little
classroom.
people.
Okay, there might be one, but like,
It's English.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ELA classroom
Of
probably.
course.
Yeah.
like,
But yeah, the high
every
school,
classroom
yeah.
in an elementary has
Mhm.
one, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That
every
is
classroom.
key
And
to
quite
what we
honestly,
do.
if you didn't see it, you'd probably be like, where are your books, right?
Mhm.
Like, you
Yeah.
do also have an expectation that there is one. So I think we can,
But also to be fair to Chris, it's like if like you've been immersed in it, I have to a certain degree, you recognize those books, how do we have somebody who really isn't aware of it to blank look through those books? You see what I'm saying? Like how that's time consuming. Like if we just had Amy to walk into a room and say filter the books out, just like a teacher who wouldn't know, like how would we, you see
Well-
what I'm trying to say is the manpower in order.
Well, I mean, I would think if a
books.
book is in a classroom, wouldn't a teacher
Are
have
you
read it?
are you asking
No,
kind
not
of for like,
necessarily, I don't
let's-
think so, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, that's why it's,
So unless we can I'm trying to find solutions to doing that, and I get it, but it's the manpower in order to doing that, and that's not a huge
for me personally,
And like,
it's not a huge priority for me, it's like the older kids. Those classrooms, like, that's a huge priority for me, and if we can manage by saying, let's just have parent volunteers. You wanna do it in the summer, and we need help to do it, then we can actually have it to help the teachers. I don't think it's, they can't, they just don't have the time.
yeah, I think that would be time consuming, and I guess I would balance it against so what would happen now if the kid brings home a book that they got in the classroom library, and the
Yeah.
parent doesn't approve of it, does that go through a supplemental material policy, or does it go through a library policy?
That would be supplemental.
So I believe
Supplemental, because
in the cases we went through, classroom libraries are considered supplemental, they're not
So
considered
that would come
true
through the
library.
supplemental policy, and I guess not having had that happen so far, but knowing there are concerns at the high school, I'm thinking like, where do we start? Where do we,
That's what I'm
put
saying.
our,
The
put
other
our priority, knowing that that could be a next step, and parents also have the opportunity to bring it through this policy, and we could,
Yeah.
we'll get a gauge for the significance of the issue at the elementary, based on
And
what kind of challenges are coming through.
And not to actually put it in anything, but I mean, I think we could also be having conversations where I think teachers could maybe start
Read
telling you or the principal, a parent complained about this book for their own kid, and that might actually, and
Flag
let's
it.
say they didn't say, no, I want it removed from your library,
Yeah,
your
just
little classroom
this-
library, but I don't want my kid reading this book. I think it might be helpful if over the course of this next school year, if teachers can work with their principal to say, hey, just so you know, a parent asked that their child not have this book, cause I think that'll start giving us a good gauge of how books are being
Okay.
thought of.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't
In the
have to go through
community.
the formal challenge process, but then I think, we can have check-in points. Because, this first year is going to be the learning implementation curve, and we don't wanna freak everybody out.
No, and I'm not saying
And
like
so-
to like
We focus in on some high problem areas,
force.
we start to plan for how we take care of maybe lower problem areas. And I think that could be helpful for us to start creating like a baseline understanding of, even if a parent didn't feel like being formal,
Right,
if teachers can tell their principal, hey, just so you know, this is the book.
Well, and
And
I
then we
think,
start
because
having
when we get done
understanding.
with this new supplemental materials, that's gonna be, I mean, is this then presented to teachers, like how do you update them?
so it'll.
So then
We're gonna figure out how to add this into our
August, yeah,
Or
August
August
orientation.
or-
I
Okay,
think
and
it'll be
then
more
at that point,
conversations
you
with
can just
principals, yeah.
mention, hey, reminder, your classroom books are supplemental, so. I mean, and
Read through.
or keep an
You know.
eye out
Yeah,
and
Well,
kind
and
of be
then
aware
we're gonna have
and-
new
Yeah.
parameters,
Yeah.
so
Be aware, so like as
they have to look
as you
through.
find out there are things that maybe parents are bringing to your attention, let us know. And I understand that you can't go through 500 books that are in your classroom library right now, but just so you know, if you bring in a new one, I
Mhm.
expect you to be following this in its
Okay.
totality.
Okay,
And then over the course of this year, hopefully we'll have a good baseline understanding of books
Yeah.
that should stay or go.
Right.
Kind of based on what we're hearing,
yeah.
more of an
through that
awareness
process.
to
So,
what the expectation is.
Yeah.
Right,
Challenge
and I
books
think
going
that's
forward.
definitely, yeah,
Hold.
that is definitely something that's in my mind,
Yeah.
that we need to do with these new policies.
Is it
So sorry.
written, the challenge books that are pulled, it will just be automatic, they will be pulled out of the classroom then too, right? Or I mean, let's say
if something goes
it
through the
is
challenge
challenged and
process and it's determined that it's to be
Yeah.
removed, then we would message that district-wide for any room.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously that teacher will know more immediately because they'll be a part of the challenge process, but we would also then have to message that out district-wide. If you have this book, it's to be removed.
Should that be,
Supplemental-
should that
Per the
be in
supplemental
procedure?
Or vending
Because I don't
machine or
think we
any,
have
any
that
shape
in
or
the
form.
other
Yeah,
challenge.
library, yeah.
I don't think we have that in the other challenge.
Well, I think it's because it's the library, and they
Yeah.
are removing it from all the libraries.
But if
They-
But
it's
the
a
libraries are so
classroom-
many small, it's just, there's only a few, right? Let me go to
But see, I would
871.
think of that
We
other
would have to
policy that it
notify
would
the
be, I'm just,
teacher. That they would have to check their classroom libraries, if
Yeah.
that's what you're saying.
but like if I read that policy, I would think, oh, that just means the library. I wouldn't necessarily make that leap unless we
Oh, it's
should
a book that's
spell it
pulled
out.
from the library in 872?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, if a book doesn't make the cut for a library, it's definitely not making the cut.
For the classroom.
I know, but then they would have to go and look in through their collection
Yes.
and to take it out, that's why I was thinking maybe it should be mentioned in procedure.
I don't know. For me, my focus is secondary. It's just, I'm not, I don't wanna get-
So I think since we're working on this one now, we
My
can put it,
focus
we
is
can
middle
put it in,
school.
we can put it in
What?
871.
Or is that,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
middle enough,
But we already
that's
have it as a
my
part of like our
focus.
internal process of messaging,
yeah,
so it,
I
so
just would-
like, if we decide it can't be in the high school library, it also can't be in any of the other libraries, obviously.
okay,
And then it also can't be anywhere else.
And when that notification goes out, it's like, hey, reminder, check
Yes.
your supplemental
And to me,
materials, check
that would
your-
go, like, to me, I would be sending that to the principals,
Yeah.
who then send it out to their staff list,
Sure.
because that, it gets more traction when it comes from the
Yes, it
principal
does.
than HR,
Yeah.
you know, like, or like a bigger email to
Or-
600 people.
Oh, sure.
So like,
Yeah.
we would be sending that communication out to the principals would be sending it out to their staff, and we would expect those materials to be removed, take it home, whatever, it's yours, you take it home. If not, you put it in some closet somewhere, if it's not your property, and we move on, but that would be a part of our internal process. And then same thing with a supplemental book. If we determine that it can't be, let's say we determine that it can't be in 5th grade or below, that would get messaged out that if you have this book, you can't.
In your library, please remove that.
I mean, I guess it's a little bit on your honor, but I would expect everybody to do it. I mean, if we came upon it, then I'd be upset.
Right,
Um,
there's a different
right,
process
yes.
that we would,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing, but I think people would take it out.
yeah,
It went through its process.
okay.
Again, that renewed awareness.
I think that's gonna go a long way once these policies are complete for,
I mean, I know if I was a teacher, I'd start going through the list of like, okay, how does this apply to me in my classroom?
the balance will be
I think
not to
somewhat.
create undue anxiety.
No, but
You
I
know,
just wanted more
teachers, but yeah.
transparency, like
Mhm.
for parents, like communication of,
But another, and then again, like I hear you, Chris, and I agree with what you're saying, but part of it then, if you do have a parent that really is concerned, have them go into the classroom and take a look. Maybe,
I mean, what are you talking about, the library still, the
well, I
teaching
mean,
library?
I'm just saying like, yeah, the classroom library.
I think we can
I don't
absolutely
know.
increase our communication, and
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of things,
Cause at
That
that,
are
at
already
what
ready to
point,
go.
like, cause they could add a book in at any point during the year. Also,
Well, then they'd have to follow this.
Mhm.
We're
So
talking about the
then-
ones that are already
yeah.
there.
so
yeah.
books are already
Yeah.
there,
So
we're gonna
what
give
to address
But
the
my,
one
my
that-
point is if you have a teacher that's not gonna follow what's in it currently, they're not gonna follow a new book either
Well, then
as
they'd be in trouble.
closely.
Yeah,
Do you know
there's
what I'm
a
saying?
whole different conversation.
But that's what I'm saying, like
But
if you're saying this is renewed,
Yeah.
please be aware. I
Yes.
think any teacher is then gonna be aware, or they're not gonna be aware and not gonna be aware.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
I think you're
99%,
definitely gonna
you
say,
know, or to
look through your
100% are
libraries,
gonna
right,
do
we got a
absolutely
new policy.
Right.
want to do the right thing,
Right.
so, you know.
And we're starting
it's-
fresh.
Yes.
We're not holding over any baggage.
No,
We're starting fresh, we
Yeah.
reviewed these policies.
Yeah.
We know they haven't been at the forefront of our discussions.
And we would
They are
like to
now at the forefront of our
them- yeah.
discussions, and I absolutely think
give them.
everybody will comply. I think,
only if they know what's in it. You know,
Well,
how
that's what-
much
yeah.
profanity is in some of these books, and
and so we are going to, I gave up last night, and the supplemental
You mean the
material
challenge?
exhibit
Yes, this is.
was too much for me.
Oh.
It
Yeah.
was too convoluted.
you mean the one from the
It's
old?
right here.
The old one?
Yeah.
It's exhibit C, 361.3.
Yes,
So this is
I-
exhibit C.
So I
I
felt
think
it was
Think
on
about
there.
the practicality
I
of
thought it was
that.
outdated.
I think it was on.
It
Okay.
is, I think we should have something,
So we wanna have
Like that?
something,
Yeah.
this needs to be.
but I didn't do it last night.
No,
So I
that's fine.
apologize.
Well,
I
think
looked
we
at
needed
it
to have a
and
discussion.
I was trying to in over my head,
Yeah,
and I also felt like it didn't feel like it was really meaningful. It didn't feel like it was especially helpful. It seemed a little dated.
Yeah, and I feel
Sure.
like this
And it
is
talks
for
about
a
video.
supplemental material
I
that
didn't
we
make it, I'm sorry, I didn't
purchase.
copy it.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
a video or a text a series of books
So
that
we
would
wanna
come in
make
a
one
set.
geared towards,
And I again, think about the range of supplemental materials, a book is one thing or a an intervention program that we're gonna use with a small group of kids, that's one thing. That article from the Milwaukee Journal is
Or that
another
one
thing,
news
or
sheet.
the weekly readers, or, you know, those kinds of, you know, a free website, a teacher, nobody's gonna put that through this, so.
I think we put parameters
I didn't
of
make,
we have
I'm
to
sorry, I
purchase
didn't
it.
copy it.
Mhm.
Pieces to
Oh,
it.
this is C.
I don't have C.
I just have it from
my
my
old
old
stuff.
Oh,
Or
I
something.
see.
So I think that's where we really narrowed and then using this and then also our checklist of
Explicit and.
So supplemental.
I asked Amy to
evaluation.
work on this with me for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Because
I started looking at it today and I'm like,
I kinda had-
I
had
don't
a
think
wall.
so, but I think,
Well, I think as
you're
we
right.
go
I mean,
along though,
I can,
we can plug it in.
yes, I think
So
if
that
we
will-
narrow the,
Create all kinds
this
of
is-
questionable.
I like consistency,
Mhm.
so we
Mhm.
have
It's
like that
questionable,
age
just
range or
that
whatnot,
it
and then we
doesn't-
specify there, and then it's applicable
No.
here, so we don't have to.
but yeah, I just don't think it's reasonable
It's
for
not. It's just not.
everything that a teacher might bring into the classroom.
We
And
can
so
do
then
those
they're
two
not gonna do
parameters
it
for
and
that.
then we're violating our own policy, so
So
I
we'll bring that
like
to the
the
next
idea, yeah.
My idea was just saying about this checklist is that, especially, narrow it down to not everything and just if if it's something that has to be purchased, that it should be here, or if it is a material, that is being used over extended a certain timeframe,
Like you're reading a
hopeless,
whole
yeah,
novel,
whole-
or you're
then it
really.
should be applicable here, but if it's like an, again, article, whatnot, that's where that.
Then we need to
whatnot,
spell
then-
that out on there, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
but I wanna narrow the parameters so people know exactly.
Or like a
And I
gift,
think
you
I'm
would
gonna-
gift, well,
To me,
Well, I
that's
guess
Come
it's
up
a
with some
book.
examples of what this looks
Yeah.
like and what it's not,
yeah, I
and
think
I
examples are needed.
Tells you what it is.
Just so that people know exactly
Yeah.
what the parameters are.
because yeah, they're supposed to sign it and send it to me and.
Yeah.
It was never done in the past.
No.
Well, I was gonna say, if they're not gonna do it, so then we're
Right,
just
so I
making
want
it
to
like a
be usable,
guide,
so yeah.
or do
And
they
so
still
part of me
sign it?
wonders if for some things, there's
do
just
what?
criteria that's guidance, and then if there are other times when we really want something
Signed
signed.
off on,
You
yeah.
know, I don't know, I need to
Well,
This
like
definitely felt like it
mull
was
it,
delving into, I want you to buy it.
right.
the way it's
Yeah, so I
written.
think it's
Yeah.
something that's being purchased that we're potentially using over a long term as a supplemental material. Like I can think of a handful of things that people have asked me about that where this would be appropriate.
Or we even bring it down, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll play
Okay.
with that.
Alright, so I'm sorry I opened that can of worms, but it was just like the
Sorry, not
consistency
sorry.
piece I think is needed.
Exactly. That's okay. I think it's good to get it out on the table.
Okay. And I found a typo on page
Oh, I'm sure you did.
dash,
Yes,
the
we,
review.
Oh yeah, I circled that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
And I find discrepancy too between the policy and the procedure. So, and here we get back to that should, shall.
no,
Okay, no, it's important,
it is.
because in court is it, well, should he or shall he?
Yeah, here's the shell for the book list.
So, yeah, on the policy you say, in the second paragraph, there's a word will in there. I don't like will, I would like to have that, see it's,
Where is it at?
second paragraph, supplemental education materials will be selected. I'd like to see that shall be selected,
Where?
to be
He's
consistent.
the shall, should guy.
Oh, I see, okay.
It's in the
I'm,
details.
yep, devil is in the details, I'm
Oh,
very
will,
business
okay.
detail oriented.
And what, okay.
And so.
Okay.
You see, all our discussion, he was quiet, he was looking for the shalls and the shoulds.
And then the
No, I was-
I was
procedure,
just kidding.
But there's a shell.
The procedure says shall, so
Got
that's
it.
consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you get into reputable biased professional, and the procedure says shall. And that's halfway down, teacher instructor shall consult reputable
Mhm.
professionally selected, but in the policy, it was originally will. Then it was changed
then we
to
changed
should, and then when applicable, so
so this should be,
it should be,
I'll make them all
it
shells.
shouldn't be
well,
all,
shall, okay.
I mean, you gotta stay
I just
consistent.
left stuff the way it was, like if I didn't have to touch it, I didn't touch it.
Yeah.
That's
It was
how
late.
And then on the page 2 of the procedure, we got will not be selected for the second line. Inappropriate for students will not be selected, it should be shall not be selected.
Great, do we need to change the other policy now too?
No, this is,
I'm just.
this is on the procedure.
Alright, well, I
No, we're
mean,
talking-
our
she's talking
other
about three.
one that we
Yeah,
created.
I'm
we'll
just
get to
trying
those.
think about will
The
and
library
shall, I
media
mean,
one, the new-
sometimes
the
will
brand
is
new
just a
one?
word that
Oh.
you're using and shall is
Jealous.
more of a directive.
No, he was serious.
And when you write a, and when you write a policy, it is a directive, so.
Mhm.
So will,
But
shall
some things
should
are
be-
more direct to me than others, some are just like informational.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of opening paragraphs in policies.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make every will a shall, it's a
No,
note is
like-
will, shall,
Like the will in like
yeah.
point one, this review will take into consideration, that's fine. That will is fine because of the context of the statement. And then you got that, you mentioned that dash before the word the.
Yeah, I don't know what
Okay.
that is.
the new
Like-
version of the medium.
I don't think I touched anything there.
And then,
We're gonna break Leah tonight.
I know, I'm sorry, Leah.
She's gonna be like,
And then I noticed on the,
It's been
on
like
the
a really
yellow,
weird week for me and
yeah, I noticed on the yellow
We're
copy,
here to
you did
support you.
You're gonna,
put when
Tackle will
applicable,
start.
but on the final copy is not in there.
Oh, yeah, that's because I just give a clean one in case people just don't wanna read my strike through version.
Okay, so are we using when applicable or no?
Yes.
where is,
Oh, it didn't.
It's not on the clean one,
I can't even
Oh,
keep
it's not on
up.
the thing?
nope.
Because I think we added when
Oh, we were doing
applicable,
that this
we did that
morning,
this
yeah.
morning. 'Cause I'm like, I just,
See,
there
devil's
aren't
in the
gonna be
details.
aids
It
to,
is, you already did.
There's gonna be a
that.
whole new clean one, cause
Yeah.
we've already made
Where's
a
the
ton
one
of changes.
at applicable as well?
So on the
So
clean one
third
here,
paragraph.
Policy.
Oh, policy, well, I'm sorry, we're
Policy
back at
when
policy,
applicable.
okay.
Oh,
because there won't be
Okay.
selection aids for every
Yeah.
type of
We did that this
supplemental
morning.
material.
I did the clean last night.
alright, so we're gonna make
Alright.
those shoulds and wills.
We're gonna call Joel
shalls.
Hawkeye.
Oh no, I just delete the clean one and then I make this clean when I change it.
I
So,
review so many contracts a day,
really,
Oh, yeah, no, I did this last night.
my
So-
Microsoft contracts, 19 pages. Devil's in the details.
Yeah.
That was my contract.
so do we, page, are we on procedure still? On page one, are we, any,
Okay, we're
so
going
we
back to
talked about
procedure.
that, right?
I was looking on page 2.
Okay.
Procedure? Like procedure, this was kind of taken from the library one that
Right.
we worked on and just subtracted a bunch of stuff because it was really about library books, not about supplemental materials. And then once again, the back was what we agreed to before too.
Mhm.
I believe the whole top part stayed the same, and then below we kind of sussed out 6 through 8 and 9 through 12 a little differently. But that's the stuff that like we already talked about with library books, and it seemed like it still kind of made sense here.
Especially
Yeah.
when we talk about book lists and things for
Yeah.
supplementary.
So. I don't wanna launch
So I didn't like
back
change
and
any of the
forth.
true content in there, I only changed like library media specialist to teacher and structure,
Mhm.
and the rest of it is exactly how we had it for the other stuff. Cause I don't think we ever really changed the top much,
No,
I think we just made it sound a little less criminal. And then the bottom we did suss out already
so,
to two different secondary
To-
levels.
To get back to something on page 2, point number 2, particular content may not be excluded. Do we want that should or shall not? Let's say consistent.
So I think that actually is coming out of a statute, so I'm gonna have to double check that, but I believe the sexual content is all coming out of a statute.
Okay, so it should be a shall then.
I think that is
likely.
a statute.
No, I think the word may is coming out of a statute.
Like on top.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we need to put it policy as that. It should be more, it should be better defined as should or shall. I don't think
Well, that's
may
the
is
decision you're
the,
gonna wanna tell me if you wanna make or not, I mean,
Yeah.
usually I don't change a statute to be more strict. I mean, we can, but I haven't.
okay,
So,
then we should, what I'm saying is it's a play on words, right, to be consistent with the rest of the document. So if it's, we don't wanna make it more strict, then it should be should instead of may. I know, I'm anal.
well, no, but what I'm telling you
I'm
is
out of this
that
conversation.
if I copy it directly out of Wisconsin
law.
state statute, I'm
Right.
taking it as a direct quote, and I don't decide if I like their
Yeah.
grammar or not.
Oh, okay,
I'm directly copying
I
it
see what you're
from the
saying,
state statute, and I'm not altering any of its words, because then it's actually not the statute anymore.
yeah,
So like, I'll double check just to make sure that each one of
Yeah.
these, but I feel like back when I looked
I
at
think
it,
it is in
like 6 months ago.
because if it's in state,
Yeah.
state statute, I believe it would be should or shall. They're really
Okay,
tight
now
on
you're
that.
gonna.
oh boy, this is
I'm
the
tight.
the
It's
debate.
9.8.11.
So-
I'm gonna pull it up.
Can I,
So we can,
while she's looking, can,
So we can stop.
number 3, can we
I just can't remember.
make that more, where it says more in line with human growth and development, as relates to sexual content, district's human growth and development curriculum,
So we're talking
should
about-
be in line, or rather than saying used as a reference source, like kind of make it more, you know, like age level rather than kind of making it,
Yeah, that one we
Kinda
wrote last
wishy-washy.
time
I was gonna say.
ourselves.
I know, but I mean more for the curriculum, can we make it,
That
like
would
this
make-
seems a little, there's more wiggle room, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it should be more in line.
Is there the same amount of
And
wiggle
not
room
used as
as
a
library
reference.
books?
They, so
It's the
this,
Same,
when we were talking library books, we couldn't be overly prescriptive.
Mhm.
So for number 3, we can be more prescriptive here. Yeah.
I think it should be a driving curriculum in the classroom where they're held captive.
Which one are you talking about?
Number 3, as it relates to sexual contact, the district's human growth and development,
We can be
I mean,
more
how it's
prescriptive.
worded, I wanna say,
Yeah,
the
so with
curriculum
library books, we were
should
trying
be
to
in
walk that fine line.
with, right, I
We
know,
were trying to walk
I
that
know.
fine line.
It's
So
fine
here we
line.
can make it, it shall be used as the reference, as a reference source.
But to determine if, yeah, should be, is that the word
So the
then?
curriculum shall be used as a
Or shall.
reference source to determine, is to assist in determining, to wishy-washy?
well,
I was
I'm stuck on, so if we make this more restrictive as a supplemental,
Mhm.
again, you could have a book in the library.
Yep.
That you couldn't put on an ELA book list as a choice.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, because the
That is kind of
statutes are
a-
stricter in the classroom,
Yeah.
I just
for
wanna be clear about
curriculum.
that.
Yeah,
It actually does. kind of
I'm
be-
well versed with Leah.
Okay, which
I know it
But I mean,
sounds-
I don't
know
think
it sounds weird, but.
it does sound weird, and I think it'll be a nuance that particularly for our secondary teachers, we'll have to navigate potentially. But I just wanted to be clear that,
Well, secondary, high school,
well, middle school and high school.
well, yeah, I'm sorry, middle school too. Yeah, more in middle school, I think maybe, but high school might be not as big of an issue. But, so maybe rewording it, saying,
Yeah, so I think we can say shall be used as a reference source to determine if the material is age or grade level appropriate. That makes it
Yes,
Not-
I think that's more clear.
mushy.
yeah,
No,
mushy,
not
it's kind of mushy.
I think you should do the same
We
with you
wrote-
then.
We wrote that one ourselves.
Yeah, so, but is that, particular content mean, what are you saying with number 2 then, Joel?
Particular content shall not be excluded based on particular alone.
Or is that from the statute?
I
Because the
can't
number 3, we
What was the
wrote.
statute?
We
I already
wrote it.
circled it to look
No,
up.
the statute's different, Chris, that's a different one. He's talking about just number 2 here.
Right, I didn't know if that was
Oh.
part of the,
It's one of these.
okay. So,
19,
we're getting there.
we'll look it up later. I got it circled.
Okay, and then.
We have plenty of time for next time. I'll Google it. I just wanna, I don't wanna miss, I'm like the note taker. I gotta stay on my notes.
Mhm.
Okay, what else would you like to tell us about
I'm gonna tell you one more
the
thing and then
procedure?
I
Okay,
might
I'm running
shut
out
up.
of room.
Then I
All right,
might be able
I'm
to shut
ready,
up.
I'm ready.
Just kidding. Okay, so, you know, audiovisual, we
Yeah.
have, what is the, oh gosh, I'm going blank now. The parameters for profanity for that,
If we
or,
have 360 that we worked on.
but yeah. I don't have it in front of me. Well, I guess my thinking was, since we are asking permission from parents for PG-13 movies in middle school, and PG-13 movies have 1 to 2 F-bombs in them.
More than that nowadays.
No, it literally,
No, I actually
there's
looked
only
it
a
up.
couple.
I
there's only a
promise you this,
couple.
we researched
The
that.
Martian,
Yes.
and there's another one, and you
It's a
cannot,
rating.
you can only have one that refers to the act, and the other one can just be like a random.
I was handed a packet and I read it.
Yep. So we did a lot of research.
I was in the 365 series, so.
So-
we did.
Yeah.
We did.
I learned a lot.
I'm thinking.
Last semester. I learned a lot.
So I'm thinking, like maybe, secondary grades, 6th through 8th, maybe have stricter parameters on profanity. I'm just throwing it out there.
You're saying be more specific where it says limited
Yeah,
profanity, we should define
don't,
limited.
I'm just
Two
throwing it
cuss
out there.
words. Okay.
Leah's giving me
You guys have been stressing me out from school here now.
takers.
Alright.
Well, I can show
That's
you
alright.
some models,
I'm
some
just in a whole new
exhibits
world.
of some books that we have currently in curriculum
In curriculum as
What about-
choice
can you turn it
as
for me?
recommended supplemental reading.
Okay, turn it
Uh,
over
for-
here, I don't know what you have, oh, okay.
So 197 F-bombs.
Okay.
97. And I mean I can't do
So
math
where
that
is that
quickly,
at?
but
What are you saying?
that's an 8th grade supplemental
Yeah.
reading material. For like a teacher gives assignments
What is
and
this?
then
What's the name of the book and
They're all listed.
they're in there, here's lists of books, but it doesn't give,
review?
but so what I'm saying is like
Define limited?
maybe,
Yeah, we tried to do that before
and I'm not saying
So
like
I-
make it super strict necessarily, cause I understand there's literary merit to some of this, but I mean,
Cause there's
Like,
definitely
we
a lot of
talked about some
classics
of
that
these
have some
books.
swearing in it, and we've all accepted that they're American classics and they have a lot of swearing in it.
exactly,
So I
but there's,
think this is the area where
Age appropriate comes in?
we gotta be a little careful,
yeah,
cause we're not gonna have any books at some point, because our staff is just gonna give up.
Right.
So, I think I should
but
go
I
back
mean,
and watch it.
if my child and Pixel, like, again, this is where the transparency piece comes
Yeah.
through. When this list is hidden in a Google Doc in their Chromebook and that I have no access to,
Mhm.
and it has 97 F-bombs in it, 100, 101, I mean, there's all different ones. SH 228, N-word 9, God, blah blah, 15, I mean,
Mhm.
I would wanna know about it and to be able to say yes or no to that book, number one. And then
Yeah.
number two, are the teachers aware of how
Likely
much
not,
profanity is in these books?
likely not.
And I'm not saying it's all the books, it's about half on those lists.
I mean, and I do feel like on a reading list in a classroom that has 30 books on it, there should be more knowledge than for a librarian with 10,000 books.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I definitely
Yeah.
feel like there is a difference there.
Right,
So-
they're recommending them that they probably should have read them.
So, I mean, I'm starting to think, we're gonna have to go back to the table on this.
Yeah, I,
No, we have to have another
Sorry.
meeting, I mean, it's clear that we're gonna need one more committee meeting, because we have stuff that we need to bring back to you,
Yeah.
but so I'll just say it out loud, that on my mind for us to come back with is some thoughts on on a true reading list with like actual books that are novels that are reviewed and rated out there, for things like at that level, maybe there needs to be like some type of parental warning sentence, like this
Well, I
book
think-
contains
I think we talked about that as
this,
the
this,
book
and
list.
this. So on the book
Yeah.
list, I don't think that's as unreasonable, like I said, librarian is like 10,000 or 20,000 books, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot to know on an individual
Yeah.
level, and you inherited a library, you clearly didn't buy all those books. But on a 30 list,
Yeah.
reading list that you
Mhm.
use over the course of multiple semesters, years, and there are easy sites that I went to, they're free and
Mhm.
viable, that tell you that.
Yeah, so
I'm
here's
starting
the
to
book
think-
list,
Well, that's what,
here's, you
So I
know, a
think
That's why I
sentence or
think
two
book look
that
should be
Yes.
on that list, personally, I think book look should be on there, because
I'm
it
more
does have,
willing to put it on supplemental, I was not as willing to put it on
okay,
library.
I appreciate that, thank you,
What's it
Leah.
called? Book look?
Booklooks.org,
Okay, I'll go to
it's the
that.
only one that shows profanity,
Okay, I'll go to that one.
a profanity count.
That was.
I mean, I think I already went to
Dot
it.
org, yes, you did.
Yeah.
So I'm more comfortable as we get into supplemental and curriculum than I
Okay.
was in library.
Yep.
So I think when we're working on the stuff that we already talked about with lists and descriptions and things, I do think it's becoming more reasonable
Okay.
for things that are actually being brought in more curricular like than just a classroom library, which is kind of just sitting there.
Yeah.
But like if you're actually handing out the ELA recommended reading list and you must pick two off of this list, I think that list can have like the
Yes.
asterisk that says
This
something.
contains.
This contains,
Whatever it
whatever.
contains.
Yeah.
I probably not the, you know,
I don't think we're gonna
specific
actually
count.
say the words,
We're not, yeah,
but
we're
it's gonna say this
put-
contains,
Excessive profanity, possibly blah, blah, blah.
And that's the list
Yeah.
that you will give to the parents.
and that's the list that
Okay.
should go to the kids and the parents, quite
Yes.
honestly, I think it should be
Well,
the
I
same
mean,
list.
Yeah.
It is,
So.
Well, the kids
Give
are
it to 'em,
obviously
but the
gonna
parents
choose
don't
it.
know.
Right, they're gonna say, well, I wanna.
Kids are gonna go over that
well,
list.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
thinking,
I think
wouldn't
Okay,
you
no, we have a
have,
parent
like,
list.
like,
We have a parent list.
wouldn't you take it a step further and have them, okay,
The kids
like,
like,
please look over your child's reading choice. And this could
But I
have,
will say there are
sense-
examples in high school if I had people being like really on top of stuff with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Let's think
know,
about it.
I
You got
I
that.
need
You
to think
got
about
an
that and
email
I really
asking
would
you.
like to
That
have
was
some
really good.
conversation with teachers, like our ELA
yeah,
chairs, because I think
Allison Leon did that.
And I
When my
understand
daughter
there's
was in
growing
her 80s,
pains
she
and-
sent my
Yeah.
daughter,
and I
she
think
sent the parents like, we're gonna, and I remember the email, cause I read it and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. The next course we're doing is about biography.
Mhm.
You know, they're about to choose it, please help or assist your child, pick one or what, I mean,
I think
was
it
just
should
I'm like, oh,
I
thanks,
gone
you
a
know.
step further and said, you know, some of these books could be, you know, could have sensitive material or,
we sure can do that. I think where I get a little hesitant is just some kids will be waiting for parents to get permission to get them a book,
Yeah.
you know, so some parent, you know, so we
Isn't the
gotta,
middle school
think
more or
about-
less, I think middle school is, here's your list, pick one, I think high school is your child picks it.
Randomly.
Randomly. Cause I remember, I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
having a list at all in
no,
books
oh, so the
or-
high school is random.
High school's more, I
Yeah.
think,
mhm.
Depending on the
freedom
class,
because you're
maybe.
older, depending on the class, I remember because I would have that for girls.
Mhm.
They choose it more or less,
I
and I
mean-
think what is nice is having an email like that and saying, just so you know, this is what's happening, here's the topic or whatever, but I think it's in middle school
Mhm.
to set the parameters when students don't have the ability, it's just a list. I think the teachers in middle school should have more warning labels or more for parents to know, because at that
To
age.
know that your child may be choosing one of these books, or
Yeah.
you and your child need to choose to, that's where I'm losing. I
Okay,
get the,
yeah.
I get the part with
Well,
the,
yeah.
with the
I think it
book
should
list
just
coming
be-
home to
I think
parents.
we'll leave it to the parent at that point.
Yeah.
At
Yes,
some
you leave it to
point,
the parents.
I'm
And you
going to
ask for
throw some responsibility on the
Yeah,
parent, so if
exactly, that's why I
the
wanted
teacher
to.
creates a list and
Mhm.
each book, I mean, maybe some
That's-
don't have a disclaimer, but let's say each book has,
And then
a
teachers can make sure you
disclaimer
look on that
sentence.
list.
and it goes to the parents and says, this is the list of books that your child can choose from, they're gonna pick two out of
Yes.
this list. If there are any books that you feel that your child shouldn't read, you should be discussing that with them, or you can let me know
Okay,
that
and
these are
I
the
think
so
books
it's
I
up to
don't.
the parent later.
Yeah, and then
But
these are
then-
the books I don't want my child to
Okay.
read if you
Yeah.
choose
Right.
I
to
think
pick
that's
it.
important.
Yes, and then on there, it should not be like the book cover description, it, like you said,
So
like
I
it
think they're
should
going to
pull
have to do a
into-
disclaimer,
Yes,
so like,
disclaimer.
Yeah.
they're gonna actually have
This
to,
book may contain.
Add
Go to a site.
disclaimers
But that has
to
to
it.
be,
Well,
that's
and
the
then if you-
responsibility of the parent, you know what I'm
But
saying?
it's
Right.
gotta be added to the disclaimer.
I think we're still gonna have a better disclaimer
There's trust
though.
in these
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
there's
We're gonna have a
trust in
better
these books,
disclaimer.
there's
Right.
blind trust in these books.
I think we can do that. I think we just can't realistically wait for parent, let me know.
No,
Like
no,
which-
it's
okay,
just
I
gonna
just
be the
wanted to
list,
be
I
clear
think the responsibility first should be teachers, if you're gonna give 30 books, you better vet them,
Mhm.
because we're expecting you to vet them.
Cause
before
it
you
could
give
be a
it.
problem,
And
if
then
they're
once
paying
the
attention.
specifications are on this book list to chair, then it's the responsibility of the parent
Yep.
to do it, because it can't be on the teacher only, and then I think that'll avoid complaints
But I,
coming in from parents who are unhappy, well, we told you, here it is.
but there should be a clear picture of what's in those books.
Yeah, and I think
Correct,
maybe on
correct
that,
to a certain degree,
On the
you know what I'm saying?
email,
And then
have
it
the
also
book
has to
list
cover.
well, yeah, I
So
was gonna say,
I think if
maybe
it
on the.
says this book contains profanity,
Send whatever.
sexual, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know what the words
Yeah.
are that you see on those warnings, but there are
Yeah.
words that are already out there.
Mhm.
Then,
Could be, I mean, might
You know, as
be
a parent,
sensitive to some
communication
students.
I think you can also,
I mean, there's a book on cutting and, I mean.
Well, but then
like you can
yeah.
Google the book too,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah,
if
it's
there's
not
something
hard
that
to
you
for
see
parents
on
to do.
there bothers you.
And please research the book with your
Please
child.
research the
Yeah,
book.
and I would even give them some of these sources.
Yeah, so these are there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would definitely pull out those
Like-
sources, like book looks and all that, and give them the
Well,
sources.
list of sources, list of books, list of disclaimer, excessive profanity, sexual content, controversial topic, blah, 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 with the little.
Right.
And then that's the parent's
But
responsibility.
I think then
Then
too,
if
like
the
the
teacher wants
teacher,
to have
once they
those in the
have that
classroom.
email, they just change the topic and the list of books and, you know, I mean, it just becomes their norm of, okay, this quarter we're
It's
doing
your
this,
template.
this
Well, like I
quarter,
said, if I'm at
this
home
quarter
and
we're
I
doing
have
this,
a list of
this,
books,
you know,
yeah. If I'm at home and I have, like, my youngest has,
Copy, paste,
she's gonna be in 8th grade.
okay, here's,
If we have 10 books in front of on my coffee table and I know what's in those books, I'm gonna be like, oh, you know what, you better talk to your parent about that before you take that book if you wanna check, you know. I mean, if I know there's, you know,
But
200
that's what we're
swear
trying to
words.
delineate on that, that's what we're gonna
Right.
do on here,
So-
so
We'll
we're
come
there.
back with a paragraph.
Yeah,
We're there, but you get what I'm trying to say, I think
Yeah, I
that
think
part
s-
is
yes.
a two-part section where we have it, we did our due diligence, now it's the parents.
yeah, and
And
I
we're done.
can
I mean,
totally
we're-
support that, yeah, then we've done everything
We've done
we
everything
can,
it's just,
and
we
then,
can't spoon feed
We
everybody.
made it
no,
transparent.
I
Yeah.
can't go
It's-
knock on every door saying here's the book list, you know, and
That's a
No,
good idea.
I know, isn't it?
You know, and who knows, and who knows, once
Oh my
a teacher
goodness.
really sees, you know, all with the some of the content in that,
I-
they might even take it a step further and say, no, I think I do need some
Yeah,
permission for some of these books.
Could create some laws on
So we'll put it in the
what
teacher's
I-
ordinance,
I think this whole,
Well, the
I am
checklist
envisioning this conversation in August, I think, yeah,
I think the checklist will help for the teachers
renewed
to
awareness.
have to check off
Yeah.
when they vet a book. You have a
Oh,
checklist
oh,
of
so
what
we're,
to check,
I thought it was just like gonna be a guide, they're
Well,
gonna
that's
actually
so I
check
think
off,
we're going to create something and we'll figure out its
got it,
use.
Just wanna
and they like maybe
But like
keep
I
it in
said,
a
some of these
binder in
lists
their
they
room.
might just be using, you know,
Yeah,
from year to year.
yeah, good
And
point,
so I think this will just be a good refresher to actually put a disclaimer statement to each book, whatever we wanna call it, call it something else, but to each book, and then I think just acclimates you with that book and what's in that book. And like I said, I
True,
taught middle and
that
high
is
school
true.
and I was young.
Mhm,
I just didn't wanna talk about some things because it made me uncomfortable.
mhm,
I know that
Yeah.
teachers that were much further in age away from those kids were maybe more willing to talk about things. But me being only 4 years older than my high schoolers,
right.
there are some places I don't wanna go.
like
That's why I
that
taught
video you gotta
first-
look up.
I taught first grade, that's why.
I taught high school right out of college at 22 and I taught 2 senior sections and they're 17, 18 and 19.
Yeah,
And even though they're the oldest kids who you can talk the most to, I don't wanna talk about some things.
Right.
You know, just because of my own comfort level. And then other
Yeah.
people have a broader comfort level. And so I think this just kind of helps now
guideline.
have
Mhm.
guidelines to those.
I agree,
And then for parents to have better information on what those levels are. And parents also have different comfort levels,
Right.
you know, and
Well,
so
to
now
that
you know.
point, now you know, because I feel like my parents did not talk to me about a lot of those things. I went to the other extreme and I talked to my kids about everything. But like now you're saying, here's the email, now you're aware, you choose to talk about what your comfort level is with your child.
right, that is
You gotta
true,
respect everybody's
Well, right.
level.
but as
where
long
they're
as,
at,
you
but-
know,
And there's
We're
some
doing
parents
our
that are
part,
like, oh, I don't really, you know, whatever, read whatever you want, I don't
Right.
care, sign up, you know.
But that's on them.
It's on them
I
to
just
do
wanna
it,
make
it's
sure
their
we
choice.
are doing our part to
Yeah.
All we need to do is, hey, this is what we got,
be done.
and be
To be done.
transparent, yeah,
Transparent,
yeah,
it's all about
but
that, yeah.
that's what it's all
And now
about, is,
parents are still parenting.
yeah,
To their
Exactly.
level,
To
Put it
their
in their
level.
court and it
Yeah.
needs to
what
be.
they want.
correct.
So
and
it's
if
on
they're
them.
not
Okay, alright.
concerned
Let's
to
calculate.
So,
look
I told
at
you
it,
this is all we
they're
needed
not gonna be concerned.
what?
We didn't need any other policies tonight, I knew it. Originally I was trying to do
No.
some other ones too, and I'm like, no, I think this is
No,
gonna
because you knew
take
I
all
was
day.
here.
We got Chris.
I'm sorry.
You
know how
smoothly it goes when it's just you and I just
No, but Leah, it
I'm
like, it
just
helps to
teasing.
work it through, you
No,
know
no,
what
I
I
knew-
mean?
Yeah, no, this is.
Originally I mentioned
brings
something like, oh, we'll have the one big topic and I'll bring some small ones. And
You're like,
then as
no,
I was
this is
working
good.
on this, I'm like, no, this is
You're like, no,
this is good.
This is as good as it
Especially when you hit that chart last
Yeah.
night, you're like, oh no.
Then I saw the chart and I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna take all night.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Okay, so we're almost
let's-
done with,
How do you feel about challenges?
I don't mind the challenges.
We'll bring back some good stuff for you on 360.
Yeah, like we'll work that,
We heard
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go watch it again.
To watch my face.
Yeah.
I
I think that this will be an issue that challenges simply because if we are being transparent and giving them the information, I don't see why a parent will challenge because we told you.
Right,
Yeah,
that's-
I mean,
that's the
if anything,
whole
we're gonna like do
goal.
ourselves a favor, we're
Yeah.
reducing, no, I'm
So
kidding.
the policy, once again, is mirroring the policy that we created for the
Yeah.
library books, which is very generic.
We're talking about 871.
871, it's very generic. We understand that parents have this, you know, that people have this desire. We're here for you, parents and guardians. Well, they may always, I don't think they shall always, they may always object to specific parents and guardians. And this is kind of where I took some of that stuff that we struck out in 361 that was real challenging, we
Mhm.
put into here.
Okay,
So this is where we're telling parents and guardians, you always have the right to have a material removed from access from your child as an individual, right? So maybe it's not taken off the reading list,
Are we in the policy or the procedure?
policy.
Thank you.
So the second paragraph,
Yeah, me
the
too.
first paragraph is like a very open, like, I don't know, basic opener. The second paragraph is where we're reminding parents that if you just wanna prevent your own child from having access to something, you always have that right, and you don't have to go through some big process. You just tell the teacher and or the principal if you wanna do that too. It was in my handouts, so,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I'll
one
get that.
pager in my handouts
Okay.
from today. And so that's where we're reminding parents, you always have this right on an
Mhm.
individual level. You don't have to, we don't make an individual parent go through like a big hoop just for their kid.
Yeah.
And then the next one is saying, if you do feel that this is inappropriate for all
Everybody.
kids at that age and grade level, then follow the procedure, and this is the procedure. So that's kind of a more basic one. No, I see all these wills, I'm just gonna make a note for myself, that Joel doesn't like will.
No, they're appropriate in some
That one might be okay.
structure.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, we will
We'll
make
make
decisions,
decisions,
yeah.
yeah.
Right,
We're not really directing ourselves at that level.
Right.
right.
The procedure is where we kind of hit the nuts and bolts of it, because that was a,
The only thing I
871 originally was only a policy, but 99% of it was really a procedure, and that just like kind of bothered me. So I created a very generic policy as like an opener, so our procedure is really a procedure, you know, and it wasn't something else.
Right.
So-
you had something first?
I just wanna make sure that, you know, our policy and procedures are consistent with each other. If we're gonna use, you know, shall and should, we should be using will and may in the procedure, right? Then they kind of mirror, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm sorry, if it's shall in the policy, it's shall in the procedure.
Okay, yeah, I was like,
Sorry, yeah,
Joel needs some Skittles.
I need some Skittles, yes,
Bag of sugar.
I'm not getting them.
yeah, I'm good, alright, we're good.
He is forming a dartboard with Joel's
I'm
face
just,
on it.
no, I just looking at,
Replace your.
I'll think about these over the
No,
weekend.
it's next
No,
to mine.
these ones I think are
There's one
appropriate,
dartboard
right?
with my face
Yeah.
But
and
these
one
ain't
with
like,
Joel.
These are
directives, like,
more just talking, these aren't directing.
This
Right.
reads very,
Yeah, this is just
Understandable.
talking.
Yeah. yeah, when you're talking, kind of making an options.
We're not actually
Yeah.
telling anyone to do anything.
Right,
Yeah,
it's not a directive.
I think those are okay.
See, I agree with the
Yeah,
word
so-
will and may.
So the
I like
policy
it.
is just kind of a basic explanation. The procedure is, you know, we talked about this, so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna start at the end,
Mhm.
because I think that's where we had a significant change from library.
Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna take you to page 2 and 3.
Okay.
I'm just gonna kind of go backwards on this, because,
Makes
if
sense.
you remember for library books, it went to the library media specialists and principals level 1. Level 2 was this big reconsideration committee.
Uh-huh.
It's parents, it's all kinds of people, it's Amy reading every book. We're buying all kinds of books. It's a big thing.
We're paying
It's-
people to
we're paying
come
people to come
meetings.
in.
Yeah.
It's 2 meetings, well, you know, it's 1 meeting and then another meeting. And then if somebody disagrees with that decision, it goes to the superintendent, and then they disagree with that decision, it goes to the full board, and then it's final. For supplemental materials, once again, these materials don't have those levels of protections. they're at way more discretion of the board. So it dead ends at level 2,
Okay,
which is not a reconsideration committee, it's
The
your
board.
committee, whoever is on curriculum. Whichever parcels of you become curriculum, it is the curriculum and learning board committee.
gotcha.
And so we're still gonna have some timeframes in there so people feel like they're being communicated with when they challenge something. But if you go down, you'll see the committee consists of the director that's on that committee and the members of that committee. And that's it.
Yep.
Okay? And then we still, like I said, we still have some timelines. We're having one meeting.
Do we wanna take analytics out or just leave it?
Oh, that's
That's
Oh,
my
that's
title,
her
that's my
title.
title.
It's combined now.
Oh, it is,
Yeah,
it's totally combined.
The committee I think is still curriculum learning committee, but Amy's title has that word in it.
Yes, okay.
And so this meeting is gonna be with whatever your next curriculum and learning meeting is.
Yeah.
And then you'll work it in to that, so it's not,
Great.
So, again,
No.
we're streamlining meetings in anticipation
Yeah, no, it sounds
I mean, you can
yeah.
always have another one if
Special
you want,
meeting,
but
should
just
be
for
able to
books.
fit it in,
it's
yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
be in a curriculum and learning committee meeting.
Gotcha,
It's not gonna be this separate
yeah,
standalone subcommittee like library.
Right.
And then, and that's really at your discretion. So like, if we get something and a board meeting is, your board meeting is 2 days later, well, it's not happening at that one, that's not enough time for us to even get the stuff prepared.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen at the next reasonable meeting that you decide, you're controlling it as a committee.
Okay.
I'm still having, and we can talk about this, I was still gonna have the person challenging come and the teacher / principal come. I'm giving them 15 minutes each instead of 30, we're kind of scaling this down a little bit.
Mhm.
Yes, please.
And then, it's still a publicly posted meeting and all that stuff.
but if they come, it's required, right? For the,
Well, you're challenging.
Yeah.
I'm just
So-
asking,
I
yes,
left,
right?
no, the very
I'm
last
just asking a
paragraph on
question.
page 2, it says if the challenger doesn't come with library books, I was saying we're dropping it.
Okay, yeah, I didn't read
If you don't
that
come to
far.
plead your case, then.
Yeah,
Yes, then
it makes
we'll
sense,
request
it makes sense, cause if it's gonna go that far.
For supplemental. So I'm keeping that in there, like we had that with library, and I still thought that was important.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make us go through all this,
Yep,
you should
No, I
come
agree.
take your 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we need to know why and
You gotta
you're
explain
telling
it.
us why.
well, yeah, I mean,
That
if you're
makes
gonna
sense.
take, well,
And
especially
then
like
if
the
we have
library.
questions, we
Exactly.
can ask, like
Yeah.
what part of this,
Yeah.
all the things.
If they're
So-
gonna take it that far, yeah.
Yeah, so I still felt like that was a reasonable requirement.
Mhm.
And then you still have the 3 same decisions, you're not gonna remove it, you're gonna remove it, or maybe you've decided I still feel like it could be for supplemental material. Well, English teacher, you can't use it for English 9, but you can use it for English 12.
Mhm.
I think we still have that flexibility,
Mhm.
in anything that we do. And then Amy will be summarizing the decision, the rationale, and sending it to the challenger and the teacher. And then we'll send it to whoever else needs to know, depending on what it is. And then this is final. Now you guys are the final, that's it. And then we still put in, and it's a moratorium for 5 years. Because we're not looking at it like, you're not challenging every month.
Right, or every year.
Yeah,
Right.
we're,
And this is where curriculum ends, the committee
Yeah.
typically is the one who decides on curriculum, so that just made sense to me
Yeah.
that this is where
Yeah, I
it
like
ends.
Yeah,
yeah.
I like it. I think it makes
Library
sense.
books were still a little bit more based in the public purview, so that's why you have that more public process. Supplemental materials are not, so we felt like it absolutely ends at that curriculum committee. So that's why I kind of went backwards, just so you know, like there's a significant change from when we talked about library books, but it's very efficient and the curriculum committee controls supplemental materials.
Okay.
You're the decision makers. Okay. Level 1 is still reading extremely similar to the library books. where we're asking the person who's challenging it to first challenge it to the teacher and the administrator first, because we're always gonna try to take care of something at the most local level possible. And we absolutely might have great resolution that comes at that level and we save a big process.
Right.
And so I don't think anything in there overly changed. We're still asking them to fill out the exhibit form, just so that we have consistent information, that we're always reviewing consistent information. And we're keeping parents structured, and parents who maybe didn't know what to say now know what we want, and people who maybe were gonna give us too much are like, no, this is where we want you to really focus in. And then they are letting the challenger know their decision, as well as Amy, and then they have their
So,
appeal
so
rights.
someone wants to challenge a book, they'll first go local level,
Challenges.
if
The
it's
building.
in the building, yep,
Building.
teacher first,
Yeah.
then principal,
Teacher, principal are together.
okay, right.
Yeah.
They don't like the outcome of that, that's when level 2 comes in,
That's level two comes
and
in.
that's to you.
Yeah, you bring it to me and then I
And
let
then
you
to
know
us.
we
Does he
need to
feel-
schedule it as a curriculum committee meeting to discuss this and then go through the process.
Oh, and then unlike the library book one, I have in here that you committee members may request copies of the material if you want them.
Sure.
Depending on what it is, it may not be readily accessible. I may have one here that we can rotate,
Sure.
or it might just be
With
a
the
free
library
website.
books, we
so.
have to provide a copy to everyone on the committee.
Okay.
Here, I didn't feel like that was as necessary, and since you are a board committee who does have final authority, without any real parameters connected to that, if you want it, we'll make sure you have it. But it's not a requirement of the district to provide it.
Okay.
Again, that could have been expensive depending on what it was.
And then this is, again, not to be like anal, but
This is where it happens.
there's two different, like, we're missing an S, like on the materials selection, there's an S in the title of policy, but there's not an S on the first sentence.
That's very good.
We are
I'm just
killing it over here.
I didn't really, I was like
Fresh blood is
looking at
killing
the
it.
Okay, so on the
essence
top
of
of page 2 where it says, you know, policy and procedure 361, supplemental educational materials
There we go.
selection.
Got it. Thank you.
She'll search
Dude, we are
material.
killing it over
Search
here.
material.
Oh, it's new
everything.
eyes,
Sir.
it's new eyes, you guys have been doing this for a long time.
Can't believe I haven't
Leah's
taken
gonna wake up in the
mental
middle of the night and go, Leah's gonna wake up, Leah's gonna wake up in the middle of the night and go, Will, shall.
I go to my HR meetings and the reason I'm like, I don't know what y'all talk about. I talk about library, but I talk about books a lot.
So what do they say? What do
And
they
adding ashes onto material.
I have to
say?
research everything and I'm constantly being told to do things that I don't know anything about.
What do they do though? What do they do?
They say, why aren't you talking to your
Do
curriculum?
they have?
Like, but you're so good with
You must
policy.
have the wrong director of curriculum.
Wow.
I know, right?
It's been good for me. I've actually learned a lot. I mean, I used to be a teacher, it's been so long, I've actually.
You're like our teacher.
I do just have
Like,
one question on so it says Director of Curriculum Learning and Analytics / designee.
That's
We
just in
wanna
case
define that
she's not
designee.
there. It's usually
Well,
me.
yeah, I was gonna say,
it's
if
your-
I can't be there for some reason,
picks
then
the
I
person she
can
feels
pick
appropriate.
another
Oh, so
director to
Okay,
fill in
so-
for.
like the pay it forward.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not gonna
Designee.
just define that, it'll be,
No.
Yeah, no, I
It's
think
usually
we
not
leave it.
defined,
Okay.
it's usually whomever Amy feels is the best choice.
If it's gonna be Leah at least.
After I created the library book,
Yeah.
Policy where I was.
I know, we were talking about it, like, yeah, it
I'm
worked,
like-
Amy's like, yeah, that, and Leah
It's
took it
only
on, and
fair
it was
that
really,
I'm
it worked out
designee.
well. Like Leah just,
it's just, I mean, every once in a while somebody's just not available and you don't wanna hold up the works.
sure.
So if she actually can't be there, we'll at least keep the challenge process going.
Yeah, and where I was going with that is, do we want only certain people like, curriculum or pupil services? That's where I was getting with that.
It would be common sense, it would be.
Yeah,
I think it
Leah
really
has,
depends on the
you have your
person.
principal and director of instruction license, so.
I mean, you're not gonna designate, Laura at the front desk.
No,
No, no, no.
You know what I
I mean,
mean?
So-
Troy wouldn't be sitting here,
Well,
you're
right,
saying like
right.
it's common sense, like whoever would be.
Yeah.
So I think since I've been so ingrained in this process, like while I'm
It's
here,
natural.
we have
Right.
agreed that I would be her designee since I've been so ingrained in the process. But like, if I leave, the next HR
pick
person
someone
might
else,
not be
yeah.
comfortable with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it
That's
very
fine.
well could be the pupil services or something else.
sure.
But between us two while we're here, this is something that we felt like it's the two of us.
Okay.
Because we did it.
And we're here and we're
We should
good,
do
so yeah.
it.
But at some point, it all could be just not feasible for one person to manage,
Right.
depending
Well,
on.
yeah, so
Although you've done a really nice job of,
So this one should be
Timelines
more
and time frame,
feasible
this
because
should
you're
be-
lining up with meetings, but
Yeah.
quite honestly, the library challenge, that was creating two separate meetings outside of any other committee meetings. And at some point, and then you also have to read the book. I mean, so at some point, you're just gonna get burned out, and so you need to be able to swap, people in. This to me is maybe a little more manageable.
Yeah.
Do you have to still read the book with this one?
yes,
Well, you should.
yes.
Well, you
Probably
should.
should.
But it's not
Because-
required.
Because you're actually.
If you're gonna, I think you need to.
Shall I read the book or should I read the book?
Maybe.
So
Should I go over there?
But it's not required to
So I'm
read
just
to
gonna
read
be
the whole
honest.
book.
But no, but your name is on the
You're gonna
book.
challenge a book, you should
So-
read it.
I was gonna say that.
And that was
If we look
required,
at the-
remember?
So I probably was more in my wheelhouse on library books because it was so codified in all this law that's out there across the
Right.
land. And so it felt like we had these very usable parameters that we could work under, and it requires you to read the whole book. Because for a library book, you have to decide, does it have literary or artistic or poetic or
Right.
something or other value or merit when taken as a whole, and you can't do that if you didn't read it. And the
Right.
way a reconsideration committee works, those types of people who don't normally have decision-making authority in the district otherwise need to read the whole thing.
Sure.
As far as I'm concerned, under the law, from all that other research, you're the actual board. And you're not going to be directed to read it if you feel like you can make an informed decision without reading it. You might be able to, you might be able to research it enough
Yeah, like.
that you
sites.
feel comfortable that this is not a library book. This is supplemental to the curriculum, and I think that based on these things that I researched alone, it does not meet educational standards to be considered connected to our curriculum in the classroom.
So library books required,
Required.
this is optional.
This is optional.
Okay,
Now, if you wanna read the book, that's great, and we'll make
Right.
sure you get what you need.
Okay.
But I don't think a board is required to do
Okay.
the same thing as a reconsideration committee.
Because we have more
Okay.
oversight on this.
Yeah.
The
On
board
this,
versus
okay.
library, which is
I
more
see.
open and vast, and it's
Yeah.
not, kids aren't held hostage.
No
Read the book.
hostages.
A judge said that.
They're-
No hostages,
No
no
hostages.
captives.
One of those
Yeah.
book
So-
meetings, the judge
So versus-
decreed
Okay,
that
I see.
So I think
there
if,
is a difference.
I think out of courtesy, if it is being challenged, I would read it.
Well, I would read
Yeah,
it too,
but-
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering,
I would wanna be able to
Yeah.
speak to.
I read it in that
what
kind of
I
way
look
where
at.
I'm not trying to write a book
Nitpick
report
it,
on it,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I would
trying to
like
get a
peruse
sense of
it, like fast read it.
But once again, I don't think a board is required for
For
like the
something, okay.
reconsideration.
Okay.
I think, I believe you would all do due diligence on it, so
Right.
whatever level you felt made you confident in your vote.
Okay.
And I'm leaving that to you.
Yep.
I'm not prescribing anything in there. Okay, the top part. This was a little, I don't know, I think I was so library that, the transition happened dramatically in my brain. So the opening, once again, is still the basic opening that we had with library books, we recognize their rights. The next paragraph, similar, that we're trying to be informal first, we always try to that level. This is now, 2, okay, so we probably need to talk about that. Each parent, guardian, or district resident may challenge up to 2 individual supplemental educational materials in one school year. The parent, guardian, or district resident must have read, viewed, or listened to the challenge material in its entirety to be eligible. I still think they need to do that, okay? If you're challenging it, you still need to be able to talk confidently to me about that. And your one person reading thing. I said 2. I think there's a lot of supplemental materials out there.
I was gonna say, that's kinda,
So I think 2 is still a lot, but
Yeah, to go that far.
I also, I wasn't sure. But I didn't think it could
Specify
be,
like grade level, you
Yeah.
know, because if you're in elementary,
Yeah.
5 or more, you know, like, because they're small versus secondary.
I'm open to discussion.
Because I'm not, I don't want a parent,
I mean, I don't wanna make it
5 in
unlimited.
high school,
Right.
because I'm not reading it,
Right, and I,
versus elementary books where it's like 4 pages.
so I was kind of going back and forth, because I'm like, we do have a lot of supplemental materials.
Yeah.
But also getting to this point should be rare,
Yeah,
Right.
Very.
because of the types of materials that typically we're choosing for supplemental materials. So
Right.
again, we're getting to the
Let's
books
just
at
keep
the
it
high
at 2.
school.
Now, we are also the board once again. We can change
Change it
this
anytime.
if it's not working.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
What do you think?
you know,
I don't know.
I think let's play with 2 and see what happens. You know what I mean? If we find out that it needs more, then we address it at the time. I think 2 is fair.
Yeah,
Cause we don't wanna spend the whole year just challenging.
well, we haven't really gotten anything on our radar
That's not
for
productive.
supplemental, have
we haven't,
Okay,
no.
so-
I
This
mean,
is
Well,
not
with the
having
with the
other,
renewed,
More
sense,
transparency,
I think,
more-
yeah.
well, more transparency,
Teachers
but
have an
also
opportunity to kind of
teachers
Yeah.
make that
knowing
choice.
this policy better
They'll,
Mhm.
yeah,
could raise the bar as well, so
I
I think,
hear
Let's just leave it at 2.
so
And
this is a
quite
technical.
honestly, if you do have a parent that's like, I really want to come against this third one, okay, well
But
then.
remember, this is if you're challenging, you wanna actually remove it altogether.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, that's what I was-
That's just like, well
Versus
then,
picking another
that's a
book.
whole
Well, that's what I-
nother situation.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, to me, I'm thinking like the whole process is challenged, so maybe we need to like spell it out a little bit.
What do you mean?
Well, when I say challenge, and then there's level 1 challenge and level 2. So
Just the-
it's saying 2, like I could take it to a level 1 more than 2 books, couldn't I? Like if I
Oh, is that what you're trying to say?
Oh,
had an
Oh,
issue.
Well, no, cause this is still removing it completely.
Okay,
Completely.
So you would
I'm
take,
debating
you would go
semantics, I
to the teacher and the principal,
Right.
whatever combo you want, as a
okay, so
parent,
that's
say,
for, yeah,
I got this list, I don't want
district.
my Joey to read books 1, 6, 10, 12, and 15.
so maybe say challenge up to 2 individual supplemental educational materials in one school year via level 2, or like, I don't know,
Maybe I need to make it more
Yeah,
clear that
this-
this is a district-wide challenge.
okay.
Right,
Yeah.
And I'll
Because
make it more clear that this is a
Well, I'm just saying,
district-wide
if I was a
challenge
parent reading that,
to the book,
challenge to me would be this whole process.
better clarification than any parent, guardian.
But you can't jump to level 2, what are you talking about? I mean,
At any time.
what you're trying to say.
so you're talking about your own child.
Like if I'm a parent, like just like not a board parent, like if I'm just reading this policy, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but like I'm thinking like this whole thing is a challenge. Cause it says challenges to supplemental educational material, the following challenge process will be used, okay, so
I
level
need to
1,
make-
so
I
I'm
need
thinking
to-
I
I
can
need
only
to
give
make it
you
more
2
clear
books,
that
Leah knows
this-
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I need to make it more clear that this policy and procedure is if you want that material
Mhm.
completely
Right.
removed to all children in the district.
Yeah.
Like, it is completely
just-
removed.
Yes,
Your kid.
yes.
That's just
You-
an informal
you
conversation,
always-
that's not a
Exactly,
challenge.
informal
and
is
you're
not
not-
the challenge,
you're actually
informal is
not
not the
doing
challenge,
anything
it's
as a parent
always informal.
For your own kid,
Yeah.
you're not going through any process.
Correct.
As a parent, you have an individual separate right outside any
Yeah.
process to say, I don't want my kid to read these 6
Yeah.
things.
Right.
You're not going through anything.
To get there.
Yeah.
You're just
Just don't read
having
it.
your rights as a parent to
Yeah.
that person. But I, you know what, I think.
If I'm like a lay person,
I
lay
think
parent,
I think
I
it
can
needs
see
to
what you're
be
saying,
more
this
clear
needs to be more
that
clear.
this is not for a parent
Separate.
who wants their own child to not read something. This
Mhm.
is for any
Removal
resident,
from the
parent, guardian
district. Yeah.
who wants it completely removed
Mhm.
from either those grade levels, the whole district, the whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll make that more clear.
And that's why I say it should be rare. You know,
Right. Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
shouldn't be happening very
How-
often that somebody wants it removed forever.
How often
Yeah.
do you get a district resident that challenges the book that doesn't have any kids
Well,
in
so
the
far, that's
district?
the only one we've had is district residents.
And we have 100.
We have over 150,
And they don't
I
have
think
kids in
we're
the
getting
district that
close
they're
to
challenging our books.
Used to,
used to.
Okay, wow,
used
Used
to.
to, I
We have a very
Grades,
passionate
I
and
think
engaged
got
community.
some 3 weeks ago.
I've
Oh,
seen that.
really?
Oh, I
I
mean,
mean,
like
you
a
had
few years
kids in the
ago,
district.
we used to have kids in the
Oh,
district.
yes, sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
a few years ago, we had kids in the district.
Yes.
But currently, our only challenges are about 150 from one district resident with no children currently in the district.
Where do they get the whole books or classrooms?
Well, I'm just telling you that we decided to leave district residents in
It's not
there.
challenges in the classroom, it's like library.
It's library.
On the library
It's
side,
library.
okay,
So they
We
can-
don't currently have any
Only I have a
In the s-
challenges.
on supplemental materials.
Well, you're a board member. So from the community, we currently, from current non-board community and parents, we have no changes.
Let's
That's what I was
specify,
wondering.
let's clarify.
How would non-parents know about supplemental materials?
Well.
Well, they got friends that got kids. So,
The new kind of hobby.
Yeah.
We're not done,
Just
they gotta go
three.
through the calendar.
Okay,
Yeah,
We're
no,
gonna keep it
I
to-
agree, I was just like,
I know, I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
looking at
that-
we're
I
gonna
wanna
keep
go
it at
home
2
and
for now.
We're doing good work.
As I said with library books, as I say with any policy, if after we do it and we live in it,
Mm-hmm.
we can always then come back with our experience and make any modifications
And we
that
did
need
that
to.
with
Absolutely.
audio visual
And we did it with audio
materials. I lived it.
So then I am telling parents that, and people, all the people who qualify, that they have to use our form. And we're not accepting any substitutions because that gets messy and unusable. And you don't have to redo your form, so, you know, you don't have to do it for level 1 or 2, but you can. And then I was leaving this in here because I still do feel like parents and guardians have first priority. If we create like this backlog
Yeah, I like
waiting
it.
list of reviews.
I just like it stays consistent too, like.
I like that parents and
the policy.
guardians always have first priority in a process.
Mhm.
And then, once again, it's gonna remain in use in the class or course until the month in which it's reviewed by the committee at the level 2. And then once again, here's that little thing that I'll make sure I make more clear, that you can always prevent your own child from having it. And here's the below,
Mhm.
reverse order we got to it.
I like it.
I
Yeah, I
think
like
we
it.
specified
Nice work.
that this challenge is strictly for district-wide.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
We'll do that, and then exhibit A, once again, was just slightly modified from the library, where the thing that I added was, I added the teacher, because now I'm gonna make, like, now it's not the library at a school, I need to know like which teacher you're talking about. So the school and the teacher, and then the actual course title too, so like, it's not just, Ninefeldt High School Leah Capture, I need to know that it's my civics class or my US history class.
It's 3rd grade reading.
3rd grade
you know,
reading, 5th grade
whatever.
math, you know, whatever it is, we need to just be honed in. And then it's still just asking the same information, actually, that we asked before, you know, why, the whys, and then the what do you want?
Mhm.
And then I just had a little disclaimer signature so that, you know, at least on your honor, you're saying that you followed whatever you were supposed to follow.
Yep.
So that one is pretty basic. It's just so that we have everything we need in one easy to use place and we're getting everything we want.
Yes.
I agree. Consistent with the other
Yep.
policies.
Absolutely.
Good deal, alright.
So we're gonna bring back some stuff.
Okay.
Now, we already
Oh, yeah.
planned out our meetings.
Yes, we have.
And I think Sarah is our guest to the policy.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be our guest.
Be
Be our guest.
I believe we already have a meeting on July 27th.
Everything's on July
I think she
27th.
sent a whole slew of them.
I sent a bunch of invites, but it was just for policy.
I'm on,
So now I was going to see if Amy and Sarah are available to do a joint again, otherwise we'll
Oh,
have
yeah,
to come
I
up
already
with something else.
So on July 27th,
yeah.
July
Yeah,
27th.
Thursday, July
there's nothing on my calendar for July 27th,
Oh,
so
good.
B,
there's
guest.
There is something on my calendar, but he's just gonna have to deal with his birthday himself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
You
totally
guys
fine.
agreed to these.
It's a Thursday night. We celebrate birthdays on the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a communications committee meeting at 4.
We're
Yeah.
at 5:30.
Yeah, that'll work.
Oh, same thing, 5:30.
And,
That'd be good, so then you could just.
yeah, and we're having another communication one on the 13th too.
Yeah, okay, so, joint again.
Yeah.
And then at 5:30 you said, okay,
Are you okay with that? I'll add you two to the invite.
yes.
So you just stay here for communication all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Like I did today. I've been here since 3 o'clock.
And we had a 3 o'clock.
Sorry.
I'm going up past the 9th hour, right?
Yeah, we got.
For this
here
whole
the
week,
3
we all have
o'clock.
had it.
Okay,
Don't run off, cause we're gonna talk about, or you gotta leave soon, hey?
Why, that's okay, we can,
so I just still have one more agenda item,
Okay.
just real quick.
So nobody talk.
Let me get through this.
I'm not finished this.
We're gonna end this here. Okay, so we still have B, which Sarah can just stay for, it's gonna be quick. So I do have B, where I just wanted to revisit the list I gave you.
Yeah.
For the next policy meeting, we should have less discussion
Yeah.
on
What?
361 and 871.
Oh, yeah.
Shall.
I had to just get it
We
all out.
may.
Should.
I'm so, I don't even know.
Questionable probability on the length of our discussions. So I was just curious, and I would say to look to see if there's anything that you really feel like, oh, I'd like to see that come. And I would say have it not be out of curriculum and learning, because I'm already gonna be taking up
Yeah.
Amy's time with that. So if
That's
you
the
see something
330
in
stuff.
pupil services, so on the side, on the right-hand side, it's kind of says like who owns it.
Mhm.
So if you see something that's like pupil services,
Oh,
technology, communications, superintendent, me, HR, and there's anything that you're like, wow, I really love to see that come through, or finance, let me know, and then I'll have to work with the person to see, is that something that goes through your committee by itself? Or is that something that comes to policy, but
Okay.
I would just say, take a look at it, and then, like next week,
Email you.
if you wanna let me know if there's anything you'd really like to see coming at the next meeting or the next 2 meetings, I'll make those a priority. If I don't hear from you, I'm just gonna start picking some.
Can I give you a couple right now?
Well, you can tell me right now.
So let me give you some background in regards to the policies, because when I came on board last year with Jeff, I think our district has a cycle, was it 7 years, 5 or 7 years, 5 years. So if you look at the third column and you'll see the date it was last revised, my goal is to get us down, what was the?
They're in gold, I highlighted
Yeah,
them.
but I remember Jeff saying
Then we
a
hit the books
particular
policy.
percentage, because we need to still continue to
Treading in the mud.
revamp
Yeah.
the ones that are outdated,
Yeah,
so we have to keep that in mind also.
and I just wanna, when I do that, I also just wanna tackle some of the important things like safety.
Mhm.
So if safety's in 2012, but yeah, emergency school closes 1993, I don't think safety over emergency.
So just tell me the
school-
numbers.
Yeah.
Tell me the
So
numbers you're
I'm
looking at.
thinking, what I
What
like,
series?
the 700 series, I'm looking at, locker room, restroom privacy, safe, the 731.1, 720, 724, 442.5,
5 school safety plan.
724, 720, 731.1, 731. And these should all be,
731.
Yep.
31.1, 720, 724, 731.
and then 442.5,
442.
which is school safety plan. So, good. I think those are my immediate ones I like to look at, and they're all in there, your highlighted,
Okay, so everybody else, if you want some time, let me know next week.
There's
Well,
one I
communicable
think-
diseases, I
Yeah,
think.
how did you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was thinking the same thing. I can reach out to Laura, because I think I had that on the list way back when, but because we didn't secure the medical advisor yet, and so now we
Okay.
have two. I can go back and revisit, because obviously now we don't have the emergency, so it changes it, so I think we need to update that.
Okay.
Because that was that was change of.
I think there's also gonna be some
formulated
stuff in board docs, our new policy
Yeah.
resource guide that we can also look at for that,
Okay,
and then update with our actual information,
okay.
so that'd probably be a good review.
Yeah. Cause I
Um,
think she had said she put it on pause because of that, which I understood. Now that we have it, we can.
yeah, so
And then
we're,
the
so
new, you know,
pupil services would just be coming through policy because it doesn't have a committee. Just like
Yeah.
technology would come
Yeah.
through here,
so that would be Laura,
so that would come directly through
you're the
here.
committee of both of these.
So are we just looking at ones we wanna kind of look at
So I'm just
or-
like
She's just
having you
asking-
identify some priorities, I'm
by
not
the date.
necessarily gonna be able to bring all of them at the
Yeah.
next
Right.
meeting.
Right.
No, no.
But just so
Or
it
just
gives me an idea
prioritize.
of where to put my focus
Yeah.
first. I will tell you that locker rooms and bathrooms, I just got a big legal update,
Mhm.
so that might have to wait a
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, cause
To
that's
get-
gonna be.
So that one I
Well,
just
we
got a
can-
big legal update on,
Sure.
and it has like 30 links in it to different
Okay.
law
Oh,
updates.
really?
So that one, I know is important, but that one just had like
Yeah.
so much happen. And I
Right,
believe it's gonna have even more happening in October. So I know it's a priority, but that one I might be talking to our legal counsel because I've heard now that huge, real things will be happening in October.
Okay.
So we don't wanna waste our,
and I would also say with 446, the same probably with that, you know, students of adults age with recent stuff in other school districts.
446.
Yeah, students of adult age, 446.
oh,
So that might be along with that restroom.
yeah, well, that's actually a little, that's usually students who have very specific educational needs and plans.
Mm.
Okay.
Stay beyond
Yeah, that,
18, the age of 18.
it doesn't
It's
mean,
more like,
it doesn't mean like your traditional
You're
high
a senior,
schooler who's
you're
18.
and.
Yeah,
It
oh, okay,
is.
okay,
We still provide services for students
To
with special needs through
Sure.
21.
yeah, that's right.
okay.
So that
That's what
policy
that is, okay.
isn't really dealing with safety,
But
it's
it's
dealing
updated,
with
so.
your,
Almost.
I mean, we can still look at it, but it's not
Right.
dealing with safety issues,
Sure.
it's dealing with our legal obligations to continue providing educational services to certain students up to age 21.
Gotcha.
That's what that is.
We also rostered their really easy ones still.
So I'm gonna try to find some easy ones, but you might have priorities that happen to be easy
Well,
ones.
I would
No,
like,
there's a
I,
reason, because I want to make sure that we're still consistent, keeping a 5-year
Yeah.
cycle.
Some things are.
No, I understand
I-
that, and that we don't.
I would like to.
It's not because of just tonight, I want you to.
I mean, there's just a
I
skid
do
list,
want
and I
my-
just kinda wanted to know
No,
for
it's like
my
a,
own,
it's like a dream list, no.
cause I kinda started and then
Dream
I,
list.
No, I told you about like the survey,
haven't
but I was gonna get an example.
okay.
That's like
Um,
created policies, right?
What?
You're talking about creating policies.
Well, that one is, but it's not necessarily, cause WASB might have one.
They may,
I mean,
they started playing around.
and then, we're gonna do that curriculum one eventually.
Yeah, well,
And then-
3:30.
Once we
Yeah,
do
the
this,
3:30s.
Yeah.
we're gonna
Oh, yeah,
do-
no, I'm definitely not saying, you
It's
know,
3:31, 3:30.
Chris knows my panic face.
I know, I do, I'm starting to know.
3:33.
You're like,
Those
you
would
go
be
look at
on
it,
my
okay.
list, yeah.
But
We're
no,
gonna
don't
bring
take me like,
curriculum
don't
as a
ever take me,
package.
I know we have to
Yeah,
prioritize.
and quite honestly, when we bring it as a package, we're probably gonna do a joint again, since we're
Just
already so
seems to make sense.
overlapped.
Yeah.
And it'll
Sure.
probably be by itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I would like to see dress code brought back
Which one's that?
and discussed. Huh?
Which one's
Which
that?
number?
Student dress code,
What number?
443.2.
Wait, 4:30.
Well, maybe, or just like a discussion, if there's things that I don't know within the laws.
Don't know why Jeff didn't have these in like numerical order.
Yeah, I know, I was like,
nuts.
it's on
Yeah.
page 1, 2.
Okay, he
Third
did several
page.
ways. He
Fourth
did the different series,
That's,
100,
pupil
200,
services.
300, and then I have another list that's just per
Four-
date of how
4.3.2.
outdated it is. He did that, and then
That's what I'm looking,
that's what he did.
I'm looking at,
Because
is the update.
I wanted to prioritize us getting our list of overdue down, and so I wanted him to do a list of priority of which was.
And we can throw in a lot of
This is the only one that was in a format that I could manipulate.
But remember,
That's
a
why I
lot of
picked this
those
one.
just needed name changes, right? Like.
Some of
Because I wanted
Some of
to, I wanted to be able to
yeah.
show like the updated dates and.
Yeah. So I don't know what he did, but he.
I think I can probably
did that.
sort it now that I have more time, but for our first meeting, I was like, oh my god.
Ooh, 522.7,
What's that?
that's in my wheelhouse.
5.
Computer, internal network, electronic mail, it's from 2010. That should be a
Oh,
quick
wow.
one too, actually.
5.22.
Oh, that's good. Give them all the computer ones.
I'll take the computer ones.
5.22.7.
Well, that's actually Troy's job to do that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You don't do it, Troy does.
What?
Oh, that's right.
So you guys don't
The
actually.
man behind the
So
scenes.
you're telling me what you would like me and the
Yeah,
other
you
directors to work on to bring forward to you?
Oh, okay, okay,
You
okay.
don't actually create it, we create it and we bring it to you.
Well, I know that.
No, he knows.
Oh no, I
He
was
knows
like,
that.
please don't do it,
He's saying
that
he
is
wants
Troy's
to
job,
I
we
wanna
will do it for
review
you.
it, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Oh no, but you'll
So
be
there's a
our,
bunch of shalls in there.
you'll be our expert,
You shall.
I want a policy on shall.
you'll be our expert reviewer on
Technology.
five
All right,
two
cool.
point seven.
Alright.
Okay. Yeah, he'll be the expert
I
reviewer.
shall review.
Can we get the next meeting?
So just send me an email next week and then I'll figure out ones that make sense
All right,
to bring.
yeah.
And to have other people work on, and so we'll at least get some caught up stuff done next meeting.
I like that
One
idea
big
though,
kind of
little
one.
substance, meaty ones and then some quick.
Cause I still wanna keep, I don't wanna lose
Yeah,
the
we gotta keep-
Some
goal
little-
of
Well, actually, a lot of them are
food
in,
Right.
And then the main entree.
Right, a lot of them, I wanna make sure that we.
And main
a lot of them actually already were,
It's like a
Oh,
mini
okay.
appetizer.
Oh,
I think all the ones was
And a
already,
main entree there.
oh yeah,
That was time.
so we'll be killing two birds with one stone.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm done,
All
thank
right.
you very much.
Your motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second?
can she motion?
Cause now we're
Okay,
combining
since we're
it.
joined,
Okay, so
yeah.
fine, okay.
Oh, I'm
I'll second.
That's really good.
Joel,
He knows that procedure. And all in favor, right? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, nobody ever says it lately.
all in favor?
Shelley didn't say it, I'm like, I. Shelley
All
didn't
those
say
in
it.
favor?
Huh?
All those in favor?
I.
Okay.
Shelley didn't say it last time, I'm like, oh.
No, it was on the
Favor?
minutes, but
Aye.
Sarah wasn't our policy minutes, but this was a joint meeting. so we
Yeah,
all-
I see that now.
Yes.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, that's
I
okay.
didn't mean to steal your sunshine.
You're all excited.
That's all right.
Okay, so let's try to pin down a date.
Oh, okay.
You wanna turn the camera on? Are you-
Oh wait, I gotta end the meeting